Good evening, section crew, and welcome back to the Second Section podcast. I am your host, Andy Dorsch, and we are having a ball here. The pre-show was, let's just say this way: the pre-show was entertaining. So I have a feeling that tonight's show is gonna be a rip roaring hoot. In the studio with me this evening, we have Mike Ostertag, my co-host. Mike, how are you doing tonight?
Why do you say that with a laugh? As if you're, I'm doing fine. I'll be okay.
You'll be okay?
I'll be all right. Just
Yeah.
don't let
Well,
me near any sharp objects.
Yeah, well, you're at your workbench, so that's gonna be so.
Good night, but why?
Good night, buddy.
Why is your headphones upstairs?
Because my headphones are upstairs. That's where it's at.
This is the best start.
The production crew clearly has notes for him. We started too early.
Yeah, we started a little too early tonight. But anyways, yeah, keep away from the sharp objects, Mike. And the production crew, get out of here.
Sorry.
My son Henry is decided that he's gonna entertain us all here while we get kicked off. So it is a family show, 35 productions. So yeah, you're right there. Anyways, so our guest tonight is the associate editor.
Yes.
Of the associate editor of Model Railroad News, Shane Mason. Shane, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Finally happy to be on after months and months and months of watching and bothering Mike and bothering you. I'm
whining
excited to be here.
Yeah,
Whoa.
Your check
Maybe
finally
a little, but
cleared.
whoa.
Your check finally cleared, Shane. So so we decided that it would be a good point to get you on the show. So for all those who don't know, Shane is big time editor at Model Railroad News. Shane, why don't you go ahead and give yourself a little introduction to our audience? Tell them what it is that you do for the magazine, your interests in model railroading, and other things that you do that are railroad related.
So like you said, my name is Shane Mason. I am the associate editor on Model Railroad News. I work very closely with Tony Cook and a lot of the guys there at White River. A lot of what I do is a lot of what you see in the magazine in terms of like the photography. About 90% of the photography is done by me, as well as close to the end of the month before we submit. Tony and I will sit down and kind of go over layout, what we're putting in the magazine, what we're putting where. I'm also responsible for a lot of the covers, which you can actually see a couple of them up on the wall behind me.
Yeah.
Every so often we try and break out and get away from that white cover and put a little something fancy on there. So
right.
A handful of them I'm responsible for, but it's a lot of photography, a lot of layout, just a lot of working alongside Tony and under him and in terms of putting it all together. And really, you couldn't ask for a better crew working with Tony. I mean, you guys have worked with Tony as well. He's a great guy, super knowledgeable, very easy to work with. He makes things very clear, very easy to understand. And he's a great guy, as you guys know. So
yeah,
it's really funny because everybody tells me I work for the magazine, but really, when you have as much fun as we do, does it really work?
Yeah, I mean, and some of the guest authors that you get are quite good. I know there's a couple, or there's a guy that used to do Chicago Northwestern reviews for the magazine. He was pretty good for a while.
Yeah, he was pretty good. There's another guy who did S-Scale. I can never remember his name. He's all right.
Yeah, he was just all right. Hashtag not sponsored, but yeah, Model Railroad News. I actually, and again, we can talk about this in hashtag not sponsored, but it's in my opinion, very high quality magazine.
Yeah, we really strive to put as much material and the best material possible. I mean, I don't think anybody in any regard is out here trying to put out bad content, but I know Tony holds a very high standard. He's not afraid to go back and rework stuff, rechange stuff, move stuff around. And it shows that he's very meticulous about what he puts together. He's very detail oriented about making sure all of all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. You know, and occasionally we get stuff that slips, but we get that from a lot
Sure.
of readers on letters we get back and emails we get back. A lot of guys that say, you know, we really appreciate the magazine. Um, one of the things I really enjoy is the fact that we do a little bit of prototype with the reviews. And
Yeah.
a lot of feedback on that too. We get a lot of guys that come back and say, you know, I learned just as much about the real thing as I did the model reading the review. And uh, yeah, it's a high quality magazine. Tony puts a lot of work into it. It really is his baby, and I think the end product shows from all of us.
Yeah, it's really good. Now you're quite a seasoned modeler as well, but you model in, let's say, a smaller scale,
In teeny tiny scale,
in teeny tiny
teeny tiny
scale.
scale. Yeah, I've been an in scale. Well, I kind of bobble back and forth. You know, I've always had trains, not necessarily model train, toy trains
Yeah.
for the sake of example. I want to say I started out in HO. I think it was one of my first sets I got for Christmas when I was a kid. And I had HO for a while, and I think I had one in scale set in there somewhere that got
Okay.
absolutely demolished. So we went back to HO because that's what my grandfather had. So anytime I go to his house, we'd set up massive HO layouts in the basement.
Yeah.
And then there was a brief stint of O, but not like detailed O, like just starter set Lionel. How many
Three
cars can
s-
I put
three
behind
r-
the? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
three real low, 100
So
miles an
no,
hour and
yeah,
away
no
we go.
serious modeling. It was very, very much still toy trade. Um, there was a G scale set in there somewhere. I don't remember where. It was one of the
Oh
Bachman Big
my.
Hauler Denver and Rio Grande sets.
Oh wow.
And then we went back to O, back to HO, and then it would have been right about when I started high school. We found a local in-track club that
Okay.
used to be out of Liberty, and we started going over there every other weekend. Then we're there every weekend, and then my grandfather joined, and because I was family, I got in through him, and I've been an in scale ever since. And that was probably about 10 years ago now that I've really been serious about modeling and working with in
Yeah.
scale.
Yeah, and that's your layout behind you there, is that right?
It's some of what is a layout, but no, it's my little switching layout I've been able to fit in my apartment bedroom, something to kind of tinker on and keep me busy because
Yeah.
growing up I never had a layout at home. I had bench work put together for a time saver type thing, but it was very early in modeling, so
Sure.
a lot of it didn't run well, and especially in scale, that's kind of a priority. So once we moved out into the apartment, I knew I wanted to do something I could switch, something I could tinker on,
Sure.
but I didn't want it to be too big. I didn't want to take up a lot of space. I wanted it to be easy to move because I knew we wouldn't be here forever. So um, this layout in its first version of bench work, third version of track work, 13th version of building revisions is finally almost getting done. There's still quite a bit of scenery to do. But because it's such a small layout, I've been able to put a lot of detail into a lot of spaces.
Outstanding. Mike, it looked like you were going to say something there.
Well, yeah, I was gonna ask you, do you ever use what you have, or have you ever set up any of the scenes on your layout to use for some of your magazine covers and things of that nature, or any of the magazine shoots? Like, is any of it able to be portable outside to be able to do actual real daylight shooting with it, or anything like that, or is it kind of more like a traditional static type of layout that you have in there?
So I made the whole thing to be able to transport when we do go to move. So right now it's all bolted together. It is 4 4-foot sections, and then the two ends
Okay.
have a 4 foot or a 4 inch extension, where it's kind of in a U shape. So there's two of them butted up side by side, and then two legs
Hey,
that come off each end of
Okay.
it. So when I built the layout, um, and I've got any rail pulled up, we can go over the original track plans to now. Um, when I built the layout, I really wanted something that I could switch. And then as I really stared at it and looked at it and marked out the space and played with it, I knew I wanted to do something that felt the original design was way too cramped. I was trying to do
sure.
too much in a space, and I slowly shifted to that because that's about when I started doing the covers for the magazine. Is I knew I wanted something that we could take outside and shoot in scale stuff, whether it was switchers, road engines, freight cars, passenger cars. I wanted something to be able to take. Each module kind of has a scene or an angle or two it can be shot on, and I knew that was one thing I wanted to make sure I could do on each module. So
Wow.
it became a priority later on.
Have you
That's
made specific, and I know the answer to this, but have you made specific modules for specific shoots?
Yep, I have. So right before we moved out, I have I can't remember if that's a 6-track or a 7-track yard over the top of my desk, which would be the original photo shoot I did. I can't see the date, but that's right when the Scale Trains Tier 4 Gevos came out. And then after I moved in, I actually have a picture of the front room torn to pieces. I did a module based off the Williams loop, and that would have been about when Kato did the SD70AH. And then the backside of that one's actually still not done. I left it unseen in case we wanted to do another scene.
Sure.
From there, we did. Oh man, I'm trying to think of which one did we do next. So we had the Yard, Williams Bay. We did the German ICE train, which is this one here. So we built a module with the German style portal, and I think that one's at Tony's basement. The Bricks Big Boy, we did another outside corner module, and that one's also in Tony's basement because I have nowhere to put that one. It was ginormous. There's a reason I picked in scale. It's because it's so much smaller than that HO junk.
Right. Junk. Hey, now.
I mean stuff. I mean stuff. My bad. The next
Wow.
one would have been last year's December cover, or
Here,
2
let
years
me-
ago.
We'll give Shane the prime time here so you can
Oh,
see.
there you go. Yeah, you can see
Yeah.
a little bit of
Now you
it.
can see all of it.
This would have been just 2 December ago's cover. It's when the Broadway Limited F units came out. We did a Denver and Rio Grande F unit plowing through the snow coming up to a station, and I think that module's still here. I'm not sure. That might be with Tony too.
But,
The Canadian.
but ultimately, you've been you not only have been building on your own layout, but for the magazine, then you're the one who puts together all those modules and then shoots them up and makes pretty pictures. Then
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we've done a dedicated 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 from the CSX Yard 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 6 or 7 modules now, not including the layout, which has not been shot yet.
wow, that's fantastic. So and then your hobby doesn't stop there with trains. You're also a fairly accomplished rail fan as well.
I get out and shoot.
You
a photo or
dabble?
two.
You
I
dabble?
just
A little bit.
me and my Nikon Cool Pix camera from 2002. We go out and shoot out a couple pixels from time to time.
Yeah.
No,
Cool.
working with White River. Do you like that? That's a blast
I
from the
like-
past.
That goes way back. Holy
we're
cow!
gonna talk about some of the equipment that you use, like the cool picks and,
Yeah.
and
My-
the
my,
flip phone,
Yeah, my flip phones and my old roll or
old BlackBerry.
yeah.
Your original Polaroid.
Yeah, but
It's
very
the only way to
good.
send them into the magazine. But no, Tony and I go out and shoot a lot of photos because it's nice to have the prototype photos for the magazine as well
Yep.
as working with White River. You work really closely with a lot of the other magazines, Otto, and I mean all the guys there. So I tend to get out and shoot as much as I can because Kansas City is such a crossroads for neat stuff.
Yeah.
There's always something coming through. So I've had a lot of photos pushed over to, I want to say, Passenger Train Journal and Railfan as well for just bits and pieces that we pick up out here.
That's pretty
And
cool.
Kansas City has Mid America Rail Car out there too, right? Is that
Yep.
is that so? A lot of stuff gets funneled through that. Also, I suppose you get a chance to see a lot of interesting things go through there.
Yeah, a lot of BNSF stuff gets done over there. UP's any work that UP doesn't do on their own passenger cars goes to if I say Mac, I'm talking about Mid America Car. It goes through Mac. KCS does a lot of like switcher rebuild stuff or a lot of repaint stuff out of Mac. The Santa Fe Bicentennial unit was down there, so I got to see it when it first come out of the shop in middle of February. I don't
Yeah,
remember what it was. I know it was cold though. So yeah, we get to see all kinds of unique stuff that comes out of there.
that's cool. So you got the rail fanning covered. You're working for a model railroad publication, building your own layout there. I mean, you got it all, man.
Yeah,
You're-
I'm just a little bit into the hobby.
Yeah,
I don't
just-
do that much.
I mean, it's a pretty big part of your life, that's for sure. And it's you do great work. And just a last thing, you're out on YouTube as well, correct?
I
Or
mean,
is that
it's there.
yeah,
I haven't
you
posted anything in a while, but it's out there.
you have a YouTube channel, right?
Yeah,
So
it's the Brakeman 17. I started that not too long after I started into model railroading, and that's back when not a lot of guys were making model railroad content.
yeah.
Um, I was making videos a lot, and then as time went on, especially really right after high school, um, oh, thankfully you're subscribed. So are you subscribed? Yeah, you're subscribed. So you
Of
don't see
course I'm subscribed.
you don't see the welcome video to my channel. That's from 8 years ago. When I was like 6. Yeah, I need to update that whole thing. But yeah, I haven't put much up over there. I don't really have time to shoot videos or edit videos. I think the last one I did.
Was ESU
Uh,
looks like
yeah, I was
function
doing some
keys.
ESU help for a guy because he had some questions on how I did some of my stuff. The last video I did was 3 years ago for the layout update #1, basic overview of the track plan. That was as I was starting to put
Hmm.
down track, and I have not done a single thing since then.
Wow.
So the layout is nearly done with scenery and everything, and I haven't done anything over there. Which is
So
funny because if you watch that video, like the first 4 minutes, I'm like, I'm gonna do an update like every month, and I haven't done anything in 3 years.
it's the classic YouTuber promise, right?
Yeah,
I'm coming out, we're coming out all knobs on 10, and we're gonna vlog this thing all the way till I tear it down, and then
But there were also other things going on at that point too, right, Shane? I mean, you were doing N scale installs, and that blew up for a long time, and
yeah,
and then all of a sudden the magazine stuff
Right.
came up, and I mean, it's the whole adulting thing, kind of,
yeah.
that came up.
Yeah. I mean, that really is the biggest portion of it because if you look 3 years ago, I would have been starting in on the heavy equipment side when I was a mechanic with my old company. So what I thought was going to be a lot of free time turned into me working till about midnight every night and then starting back in at 7 a.m. fixing equipment day after day. So between that and then
calling me at 10 o'clock at night in the middle of the fall.
out
Hey,
in the middle of
check out this
absolute
excavator.
nowhere. Yeah.
I got to do an oil change on this thing, and I'm bored.
Yeah. So it's tough, I even install work, I haven't done a whole lot. I've done some pieces for me, and I've done a
Right.
couple of things for some friends, and one for a brass customer I've done a lot of work for. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that gets in the way, and then like Mike said, it's a lot of adulting. That
Yeah.
we had a wedding, we had all kinds of other stuff, we had trips, I mean,
Well,
it piles on. Then, like you said, working with a magazine, that really takes priority. And especially when we get hit with a lot of samples or we get close to the end of the month and we're sitting down and doing layout a lot, it really takes away from your time to do this. And then I had a really bad episode of burnout, and I don't try and force myself when I get burnt out. It just,
yeah.
I can't force myself to do this stuff. So um, there was a really a good number of months where I just didn't accomplish anything in this room because I couldn't force myself to do anything.
Yeah. It's a
You just
real thing. It is an
yeah.
absolute real burnout is a real thing. I mean, Cripes, we did a show about it.
Yeah, I was gonna say
And
your guys' show you did was awesome. That as I was watching through, because I was a bit behind, so I was trying to catch up, and that's one of the shows
Yeah.
I watched. And it was a really good show, seeing what everybody else does. But that's the one thing where I'm kind of against everybody else. Where like, go and operate, go and do this, go and do that. I cannot pressure myself to do this stuff because when I try to make things happen, it doesn't work. And then when it doesn't work, I get frustrated, and then I don't want to do it anymore. So I have to let it come back to me.
yeah, and
Do
I
you
think
find
everyone's got their own way of coping with it, and that's okay. And some people it's, hey, let's just let things settle for a little bit. That's cool.
Right.
do you find, Shane, that sometimes because we all know how Tony is. I mean, the three of us know how Tony are, I should say. I mean, for everybody that's out there that doesn't know Tony, if you ever get a chance, Tony Cook, if you ever get a chance to meet the guy, you'll be better off for doing it. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he's
But
a true delight. That's
he's
for
a
sure.
very, very good guy. And But do you ever find that the pressures of deadlines and things that you need to do for the magazine just make you throw the brakes on with all, even though there's something you want to go and do and you just can't bring yourself to do it because it's it's just too much. Do you have that? Do you ever run into that kind of a wall?
I mean, it definitely takes away from the time that I have when there is magazine stuff because of my responsibilities to the magazine and because of my role to the magazine. There are a lot of days where I want to come home and do stuff, and I have to tell myself, no, I've got to get this shot, I've got to get this stuff processed. I have to finish my own reviews, or Tony and I have a layout meeting that I have to be in with him for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then by the time you get done, you're just done. You're like, okay, that's enough train stuff. I've done this for 2.5 hours. And even if it's just layout stuff, yeah, it does zap you a little bit. It definitely depends on the workload though, because like sometimes we get months where it's really busy, and then sometimes you get months like right now there's not a whole lot coming out, so we're kind of working on some of our backlog stuff. So right now is a little slow, but always around Christmas it gets crazy. It seems like late summer always gets a little sideways too.
I'm kind of hoping that Train Fest coming up in November, which we'll talk about here probably later in the show, or I know we're going to talk about it in another show for sure.
Another show, right?
But I'm kind of hoping that Train Fest start this year is a launching platform for a lot of companies to introduce new product like they used to do. It used to be like Scale Trains introduced their SD45s at Train Fest, and there's so many companies. I know I believe Athearn has announced things there in the past, and yes, Train Fest is definitely worth the trip. It has been in the past. This is going to be a new adventure coming up for it. So this is with Kallenbach being involved. It's going to be very much an adventure, but it'll be very interesting. I'm excited for it. I actually am. I haven't been this excited for Train Fest in a long time, to be honest with you.
Yeah, same here. They've paired with the world's greatest hobby show organizers. So it's going to be it'll be a different take on an old classic, that's for sure. So I'm excited for Train Fest as well.
So,
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, I tell you what, Shane, you're no joke when it comes to doing this stuff, bud. I tell you what, we've I've seen your handiwork firsthand, and I've been right in your side pocket when you did some of it, and let me tell you, I was both traumatized and in awe after seeing the photos. And there's an off-air story that we will tell later, Andy.
Okay.
About a time in St. Louis where Shane guaranteed my safety, and it was kind of nip and tuck.
He's still here.
No,
he brings this up all the time, and he's still here.
That's the measuring stick. Did you die? Anyways,
I'm fine.
So we thank Shane. Hell of an intro. Welcome to the second section. And speaking of the second section and the section crew, we have 65 people in the chat tonight. Welcome, everyone. We'll just go and say hi to everyone. If you're out there in the chat and you want to say hi, throw something out there so we can get you up. So we got Mike Shanky here tonight, Thomas Imlay, David Winther, Stephen Gilligan, Thomas Chris, Nick LaRusso, Paul C is here tonight, Tim Moran from Akron, Ohio is here. Timmy's Miniature and Weathering Works is here tonight. Welcome. MEC M211 is here. David Karkoski, John Benicki, Scale Rail Supply, Joe Sampson, Paul August, and the C&W Mondovi line is here. Randy Timmerman, Tom Klamoski is here tonight. Chicago, Denver, and Northern. Dodo Ops 1 or Dodo 1 Ops. Joe DeLusso is here. Welcome, Joe. Beerline Modeler's back. See here, Este Pande Projects is here. Neil Erickson, aloha from the Big Island. Welcome, Neil. Jeff Anthony, Tom O'Connell, 35 Productions is here tonight. Welcome. I think he may be going under an alias this evening. A&M Fan is here. Let's see, Santa Ana Industrial Leads here. Mark Stafford, Greg Harper, welcome. Boomer Diorama, River Road is here. Welcome, Boomer. Soko Olds 455 is here tonight. Justin's here. Welcome back, Justin. I know you've been absent from the chat for a few shows, so welcome back. Dave Nitch is here. Welcome. Oh my gosh, it's Philip Taylor. We had all of the usual suspects here. Michael Shea is here. Mini Prince is here tonight. Welcome, Bernard. Otter Creek and Rio Grande. Marty's Train Shed. Good day from sunny Queensland, watching the stream from the hospital again.
Oh boy.
Get better soon, Marty. Get
Yep.
better soon. Split Rocks here tonight. Wigwag Workshop. And the list goes on. We got all the friends here tonight. Dan's Model Railroading Journey. Jim Walsh. Hello from New Jersey. Gerald Eames is here. Roger Moses. Andy Crawford is here. Long time. It's been a long time. And Howdy Section Crew. Chris Draper. Look at all these names. Some new ones tonight. So welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to the show tonight. Thank you for tuning in. Rules are for the section crew out there. Let's keep it railroad related. I don't want to have to toss you out onto the street. And again, if you have questions for Shane, Mike, or myself, toss them in here. We'll get them up on the show as soon as we can. And of course, thanks again for coming in. So leaking up to 70 members here. We're through our intros. I think it's time for our first segment here. So we're going to take our first commercial break.
Wait till you see the band, Shane.
You gotta see the band. We're going to kick it over we're going to kick it over to the Greasy Meat Hands band, who's working hard on their first CD, their first album. So we'll kick it off right here. Yeah,
I'm into
not
it.
bad. That's not
It's
bad.
not bad at all. I actually caught the guitar player backstage before we come out, and I asked him. I said, how do you maintain? And he's just said, Crisco every day, just Crisco.
Yeah,
shortening all the time.
Nice.
That makes
shortening.
sense.
Yeah, it's a way to simulate the Greasy Meat Hands. Crisco is, again, hashtag not sponsored on the Crisco, but and David Winter's right. The band does get better every week. So we're here on hashtag not sponsored. It's the part of the show where we talk about cool things, products that are out there. And Santa Ana is right. That's got that Hot for Teacher Van Halen vibe. I live by three rules in my life: inhaling, exhaling, and Van Halen. So
Oh boy.
there you go. You heard it here first on the second section. Andy Dorsch's MO. So anyways, so we're going to talk about a few things that we're really excited about. I'm going to, if anyone doesn't mind, I'm going to go first because I don't want you guys stealing mine.
No, go right ahead, because I don't really have much of anything, to be honest with you.
So I'm actually particularly jazzed. So Moloko Freight Cars this week released their new box car, and it is the ACF waffle or 50-foot plate C box car.
Those are so cool.
They are. And I heard my wallet just start screaming. So they're doing pre-orders for these right now. And I think they're doing a handful of roads to start. But I know this was on Model Railroad News. Again, hashtag not sponsored. They posted about this. But the Post waffle, like the Denver Rio Grande Western, I mean, that's a sharp looking, with the action logo on the side and the bright orange and black colors. It's just a sharp looking car. Gonna have to have a couple of those come home to the layout. They got a nice Burlington Northern one there. And then they also have a whole slew of undecorated kits. So if you're looking to paint up your own scheme for these cars, they're going to be really neat. And I can attest the Moloko cars are pretty good. I have a bunch of their Evans RBLs that they've been kind of going through the production on those for years, and they're fantastic cars, great running cars. And the detail is right up there with the tangents. So this is
Are these
my
a flat kit, or are they a flat kit, or are they or is the
No.
shell all one or like a one piece shell, or
So the painted up ones are ready to run. So I have recently I got the Triangle Pacific here repaint. This is one that I picked up recently. Comes in, just a ready to run kit, and they're $62 US if you're to buy them straight away from Moloko. But again, they're very strict to the prototype, just like Tangent, and high quality rolling stock. Operates well, tracks well. I'm really excited for these cars. So my pocketbook is going to be hurting for sure, and I'm sure they're gonna be putting out multiple road numbers on all of those. So yeah, it's gonna be awesome for me at least. And what I model in the 70s and 80s. So
I will say they make stunning equipment too. We had some Molokos come across for samples. I want to say maybe the beginning of this year, and I don't recall what car off the top of my head. But man, I was shooting the photos for the car, and
yeah,
the one thing that I couldn't help notice, and you really see details when you're looking at it, but when you take a photo of it and then blow it up on a monitor that's 28 inches and really start looking at it, the
yeah,
detail on those cars are absolutely incredible. Whether it's the molded in detail, the added detail for HO, those cars are stunning,
yeah.
and they roll well too. They're
They
really
really
good
do.
operating cars.
Yeah, they really do roll well. I think they're Katie scale coupler equipped. So if you're a Katie layout, they're going to fit right in. So yeah, that's my particular I guess excitement for the week. When I saw that, my eyes almost bugged out of my head. So pretty cool. Hey, there's a question here that came in from Joe Sampson. If you could change scales, what scale would you pick? And I know it's not part of hashtag not sponsored, but I just saw this in the chat and I'm like, I think we gotta pick that. I think we gotta pick that and talk about it. I know what I would do.
Hmm. Mike, you want to go first?
I guess
Yeah,
it
go ahead,
depends
Shane.
on-
Go ahead, Mike.
No. Why am I going first?
Why not?
If I had to pick a skill, if I had to leave S, I'm not. I don't know. I'm so happy with what I'm doing, even though I'm frustrated a lot of times with what I'm doing. I just can't see myself going back to just taking everything out of a box like in HO scale. N scale is too small for my mitts.
Greasy meat hands.
For the greasy meat hands. Oh, that Proto 48 is awful tempting. It really is. That might be where I end up going. Would be closer to the Proto 48
Proto
stuff
48.
and having a smaller layout than what I even have in S scale. And I don't necessarily mean smaller in overall dimension, but overall scope, I guess would be, you know what I mean? I wouldn't try to go and do anything like something monumental or something where I need a warehouse in order to put it in, something. So that would be, and I might, along with that, if you had to change away from doing what you're currently doing. I'd actually be tempted to do like main 2-foot gauge.
Ooh, throwing a wrinkle in there. Some sort of
Main
narrow gauge.
main 2-foot possibly, or maybe East Broad Top. Something along those lines, which, it's really kind of neat that they're back up and running. I guess that's kind of the way I would go.
I would jump into, I would do Proto 48. That's where I would go if I no, I'm lying to you. I would go to S scale. If I had to switch, I would go to S scale.
Why?
Because
I was leaving.
Yeah, you're leaving.
Now that guy's gone. We can all go over.
Yeah, and it's either I'm gonna say S scale. I just the scale for a size. I still have the dexterity. I think I could still manage it. And then I think I would shrink down to a room sized switching shelf layout and just really focus on building equipment and getting to where I was, really, really detailed and making highly detailed and weathered models. I think that's where I would go, or that, or maybe just multi-scale and just say the hell with the layout and do 1/48th and 1/64th and some of those other odd scales as well, just to build models.
What about going 7.5 inch? You can build an entire machine shop in your backyard and just start building. Just build everything, right from scratch.
I don't have that kind of money.
I don't either.
I have to pay the Greasy Meat Hands band. I have to pay the guests. It's just, I don't.
Hey, I was told we paid you. I just finished my 9th installment of $99.95.
Yeah.
We'll talk about this after the show. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Andy. Sorry.
we'll figure it out.
What about you, Shane? What would you do?
That's a real struggle for me because being with the magazine, I get to see a lot of different stuff. I have some O scale, a couple box cars. In scale, of course, but if I had to move away, I'd really like to go to S scale for the abundance of equipment that's available.
Wow.
Mike's in the pickle barrel tonight.
Wow.
No, I'd really go probably HON3.
Oh, there you go.
I really enjoy it's probably my third pick of what I would model. If I wasn't doing more modern in scale, I would have done like MRL in the late 90s, early 2000s. If I wasn't doing MRL, I would have done narrow gauge. I really like that. And I know this is a pretty stereotypical narrow gauge, but I really like that Durango and Silverton area. The equipment, the cars they use, the way they operated, all that stuff is just so unique. And it's hard to get over some really good looking steam. You get a K28 or a K37 out there. It's hard to turn down. We actually operated a couple weeks ago at John Vandenberg's here in town, and he models from Durango to Silverton and then a branch to Farmington. And man, getting to operate narrow gauge equipment, it's just it's something more than standard gauge, and it's just so unique.
Yeah, good answers all around, I think. And thanks, Joe, for the question. That was an interesting little segue there in hashtag not sponsored. So back to the topic. Do you fellas have any products or things that you're totally jazzed about?
I do.
Mike's got something.
And it's nothing new. How about that?
Nothing new. Oh, well, no. Doesn't have to be new.
Our friends over, our good friend Matt Wilkie over at Circus City Decals. If you guys need decal work done, his decals he does really, really nice work. Here is my Farland term. I should probably get a little closer. Hey, you know what? This
I think
is
you should
this
switch.
is I'm switching.
Switch it. Do the camera switch. There we go. Now flip it
Let's see if
upside down. There you go. There you go. Look at that. Back away just a little bit. Perfect.
right
Down. Yeah, that's the one right there.
there. These went on so nice. The amount of time it took them to make these decals was the turnaround was really quick. He was easy to work with. You know, I can't say enough about how good a job Matt does with his stuff. He has all sorts of prototype things, but if you have a freelance railroad and you want decals made, this is, give Matt a shout and see what he can, come up with for you. So I mean, it's really, 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 the decal sheets are like, I got.
So Mike, what
I don't know.
what are
White's not going to find out. Right?
it's there. Yeah.
It's there.
So he's able to print custom decals in any color. Did you send him the artwork or did he draw that up for you?
No, I sent him the artwork. I asked him, I told him what kind of boxcar I had, and I asked him if he had any data for it.
Mm-hmm.
And if he could, if he could, I was chuckling at what Boomer said there.
Let me weather that with IPA.
You'll be getting a call there, Boomer. I asked him if he had any, because I had a specific boxcar that I wanted. And then I kind of came up with the paint scheme for the engine while I was working with him on the boxcar stuff. And we went through a couple of real quick iterations of it. And I told him what I wanted and the numbers that I wanted. And he sent me a proof, and I'm like, yeah, let's do that. And then I came up with the idea, hey, let's make these the same color green as the door.
Yeah.
And he said, okay. Next thing you know, boom, there's another set of decals with it in green. And so and the logo that I had made up, I sent that to him, and he scaled it, and he did all of that work. And he charges for it. But once he has the artwork and stuff like that, you're in pretty good shape. It's I don't discourage going to any decal manufacturer, to be honest with you, that does custom work. I know there's several of them out there that do great custom work.
Yeah.
But around our area, he's very, very well known, and Circus City is he's done stuff for people all over the place. And
Yeah.
So that's my hashtag not sponsored, because I've been
That's a
working
good one.
I've been working very closely with them on this.
So that really looks, so for the folks that are catching the audio replay back at home, so it's, what do you got, an S scale? It's an SW1200?
Yeah, SW1200. It was, if you're a member of my Farland Terminal Railroad page on Facebook, you'll know that this was a black engine, all black, with had a little orange band here, and just some kind of stenciled Farland Terminal FT reporting marks and number on it. And I just came up, I thought, well, I want my own paint scheme, and I came up with a tan with a kind of just, I don't know if it's really forest green, but just a green stripe.
Yeah.
And that's it. And I did quite a bit of research on how these engines, how switch engines in particular, were painted. And I was amazed. I thought they would have been like elaborate and done like in all sorts of, fancy, and no, especially the ends of them, especially the cab end. I would have thought there would have been for sure all sorts of different, chevron styles and goofy things on the back. And the vast majority are either painted a solid color with nothing at all, like not even numbers or anything, or the stripe that goes around the locomotive itself is back there. and then a handful of them have some chevrons. I know Wisconsin Central had chevrons. Illinois Terminal had some chevrons on the backs of theirs.
MKT.
MKT had chevrons on the back of theirs. But as a matter of fact, MKT at one point, some of theirs had a solid yellow cab, believe it or not, for a little bit. So I mean, it just, but those are the exceptions rather than the norm. Most even short line railroads don't get real elaborate with the back end of that.
No.
So I wanted to try to do that with this, and then Matt kind of helped me with, making sure the layout was all right, and
yeah,
it turns out the decal set turned out far better than what I imagined. So
that's good. It really is a good looking model. With the tan and then the green really kind of jumps out and contrasts nicely, and then the white lettering and the green stripe. It's nice, simple scheme, and it's unique too, right? So the Farland Terminal has something that they can kind of call their own. So that's pretty cool.
And it all started because I wanted I was reading this book, another hashtag not sponsored.
Whoa, two products.
Two products.
Put her up on the big screen there, Mike. What do you have? What is that?
Another Morning Sun book.
Morning Sun.
Incentive Per Diem Color Guide.
There you go.
If you're modeling the 70s all the way to today,
70s.
literally 70s.
I wasn't around for 27 more years.
Holy cow. But if you're modeling the 1976 all the way through till today, like literally today, this is a great book to have if you can find it. The incentive per diem era was short-lived and very odd for railroads. I mean, there were a lot of railroads that ordered cars that never would fit on their railroad because they had so many cars. If you took them all back to the railroad, they never fit.
Right.
But even today in Manitowoc, I get these same cars still.
Nice.
Just all painted out and everything. But some of them aren't. So like I just had a Southern boxcar in my yard the other day. Yeah, Southern waffle side, and I actually have a model, a kit model of one sitting here, and I'm like, ooh, I gotta get pictures of that. So, research guides, decals, research guides, Morning Sun books. These, everybody wants to go on the internet all the time, myself included. But sometimes there's just nothing about opening the pages of a book and seeing exactly what the authors have put in there, and that what does diem mean? Okay, incentive per diem means per day in Latin, I believe it is. So, or a day or something like that. It's Latin, I believe.
Roger, and Moses says per day.
Per day, yeah, per day, and it's it was a way for the boxcar fleet in the United States to be rejuvenated by the government helped with this program, and it gave incentives. That's hence the name incentive per diem for cars, because the boxcar fleet was short and what?
So they only pay in Latin money.
Yeah, so they only pay.
Split Rock's having a bit of fun with you tonight, Mike.
Oh, who isn't? So basically, back in the 70s, the boxcar fleet was in such disrepair in the country that railroads didn't have enough of them, and the ones that they did have, most of them were bad order. They were broke. So they needed new equipment, and the government kind of helped with this program, and a lot of short lines jumped on it. And it was a way for short line railroads to buy 100 boxcars and throw them out into the general production fleet and just make some money.
Yeah, right.
Problem is it didn't last long enough for it to really be to really ever meet its full potential. So There's a whole, you can read about it online. There's a whole story about it. So
This is so
Latin's
Marty.
in Latin with tag.
Lessons in
You don't want to know
Latin
the
with
next
tag.
Latin word you're gonna hear.
So carpe diem, right?
Yeah.
Seize the carp.
Seize.
All right. Seize the carp.
Yep.
And then I think Justin says here deregulation put an end to it for the most part.
Yeah, that was it. 1980, 1981 was pretty much the end of the incentive per diem stuff. So
Right. And Split Rock basically saying nothing like having a short line be 2 miles long with 30 miles of boxcars.
exactly.
So
It happened a lot.
happened a lot. Shane, on the hashtag not sponsored front, you got anything cooking up tonight?
I mean, I've got two,
You got
And-
two?
and one of
Woo!
them's technically a slightly sponsored.
Slightly sponsored.
I gotta
Okay.
pump the model railroad news.
Sure, of
Um,
course.
This is the latest issue. November should be hitting into newsstands right now.
Mhm.
If any of you guys are not getting this, it's a fantastic magazine for both prototype and model stuff. Not that I have any kind of associated ties with that, but it is.
Now inside, can you open that magazine
Oh.
up for us? There's a guest editorial in there from another podcast, a friend of ours, right? Ray?
I believe so. Let me look here. Yes,
think
there
that-
is.
Yeah, so from around the layout, looks like Ray, host of that show, he has a guest editorial in there, so it's a good read. So the magazine, just for that alone, just for that little editorial, is worth picking up. So hats off to you there, Ray. That was good.
Yeah, it's a really good read. And then, I mean, I'm just trying to see what all. I mean, there's all kinds of good stuff. Between new Walther stuff coming out, tons of reviews. Tony did a bit and piece about one of the old Bachman bicentennial sets that they did a while back.
Yeah, right.
And it really broke his heart to have to take that out of the box.
I bet.
Because if anybody knows Tony, he takes nothing out of the box. But
Yeah.
either way, great magazine.
It
Really
is.
great way to stay on top of new stuff that's coming out, new stuff that has come out, as well as reviews. And like I said, there's bits and pieces of prototype stuff mixed in with those. That way you have a little bit of background going into them. So if you don't read them for the models, read them for the prototype.
Yeah, it's really cool. It is really cool. I think it might be my favorite publication out there. Yeah,
So
good stuff.
it's not bad.
It's
not
pretty
bad.
good. I know the guy that helps me with the pictures when I do articles. He's pretty good. So
He does all right.
I asked him one time to help me, and he said no. So
I don't believe that was the case, Mike. I'm pretty confident there's a whole different story that went with that.
yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And then just a note here for everyone listening: Around the Layout is a good podcast, according to Split Rock. High quality East Coast content, unlike the podcast from Minnesota and Wisconsin. And I think he's right there.
Yep.
He's right. We love it. All right. And then you have another one here.
Yeah, so this is the latest one I've got. We actually just did this review. I believe it was the October edition of Model Railroad News. Has my review for this. The guys from Iowa Scale Engineering have put together this Motorman. I picked it up from them there at the St. Louis RPM and installed it on the layout about a month and a half ago.
Okay.
And it is a fantastic little product for anybody who's not seen this. It's a standalone unit. You plug it into your layout. It does not integrate with your current DCC system. It is its own separate system.
Really?
But it will run DC or DCC engines between two infrared sensors. And there they've got a picture of the board there off one of their videos.
Yeah.
But I installed it on my layout. I've got one of the sensors on the what is module number 4 on one leg, and then the other sensor is just right about here on the first leg. And what it does is you punch in the address, and you can tell it what functions you want on, what functions you want off, what functions you want it to turn on when it hits the sensor. So like mine's set up right now where the engine will come all the way around, hit the sensor, and then the brakes will apply. It'll spool down, and then it'll wait. I think mine's got 15 or 20 seconds, and then it'll throttle back up and head back the other way, all the way across the other side of the layout. So
What?
when I'm not running trains, I can have something DC sound kind of just putting back and forth behind me while I'm working on stuff at the
That's really
Venture.
cool.
That is outstanding. So Heath from Humanity Junction says he loves the Motorman. I recommend it to everyone. He has bought 3 of them.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
Wow.
it's a really fun product. They also make, I highly recommend this too, the track switch panel. So what it does is the circuit board comes off of the smaller panel, which is this one here.
mhm.
You unscrew it from the back, and then you just screw it into this one, and then on the back of it there is a switch, so you can hook in your DCC system from here, and you can switch between your
Oh my.
the Motorman, and whenever you're going to go, like if I was going to actually run the layout and switch cars, I would swap it over to my DCC system so I can play with the proto throttle, and then when I'm done, I want to just move trains back and forth, swap it back over to the Motorman.
Oh, that's so cool.
So that Motorman could, if you had, like, if say you were modeling Metra, can you set that up to go, like, do station stops and continue in one direction until you get to a certain point and then go back?
Yeah, so
Oh.
it's as far as you put those sensors out, and there is an intermediate stop for left direction and right direction too. So you could put uh, an intermediate stop in both directions on the layout as well.
Hmm.
But
Wow.
it's not tied into your DCC system, so it would have to be a track separate because that track is powered specifically by the Motorman.
Yeah.
So as long as you're not operating or don't plan on operating where that train is running, yes,
Or have
Wow.
some sort of toggle switch to flip between the DCC
Yeah.
system or the Motorman.
yes.
That's cool.
But it's for 125. I think they had a special on it there in St. Louis. I got that and the cover panel for it. It was super easy to install. The sensors, they sell a bracket for the infrared sensors. They're available in the under track and then the 90-degree right angle sensors. They have a bracket that they sell for installing the sensors under the layout. I believe it's separate. I actually made my own out of some 5/8 wood and some magnets to where my sensors are removable. So when I go to transport the layout, I can take the Motorman off, put it in a box. I don't have to worry about breaking sensors off or any of the normal worries for moving a layout.
That's really cool.
So when you do that, Shane, do the sensors have to go back in the same spot? Like, do you have to number them so that way you know this one goes here, this one goes here? Or does it not matter when it comes to the sensors? It's just that there's a sensor there.
It matters to where you hook it up on the board because the board has inputs for left, right, and then intermediate left to intermediate right. The sensors themselves can be put anywhere. So like if I took the one from the right side and put it on the left side, as long as I hook the left or this new sensor into the left side input in on the board, it'll work just fine. All the sensors are universal.
Oh, nice.
So you get the board, the actual control board, and the 2 infrared sensors, and I believe it has 8 foot of wire from the sensor to the end of the wiring where it hooks in, and you can actually see it. Whoop, it's backwards for me. Actually see it hooked into the layout here. So I've got the board put up, and I think on my install page I put up a thing or an example of the bracket I made somewhere over there. I believe it is, but either way.
Nice.
So yeah, that is my. Oh yeah, if you go over my install page, or I guess it's really become my general modeling page, Breakman 17 Custom Models on Facebook. You can kind of see what I've been working on recently. But there's 2 photos of the little wood and metal or wood and magnet bracket I've made that just snaps right to the bottom of the layout, and there's a countersunk magnet glued into the layout now to where those just snap right into place.
That's awesome. Yeah, and
So.
it sounds like Heath says you can connect the sensors. It does not matter. First sensor comes to it, and then it sets it, and then reverses. You do not need to worry about it right to left.
Nice.
So that's pretty cool. So Joe Sampson, another good question here, kind of tangent, not tangent rolling stock, but tangent as in close to, or touching the topic of the Motorman. What DCC system would you recommend for someone wanting to switch from DCC from DC? So we got a bunch of people in the chat saying NCE.
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to personal preference. A lot of DCC stuff does. Um, the best thing I can tell you is get what your friends have. Um,
Hmm.
I have Digitrax from when I was with the Intrack Club because the Intrack Club was all Digitrax. And then when I first started building the switching layout, I moved to the ESU because that's about when I had the proto throttle, or about when I got the proto throttle. So I was able to use the Wi-Fi from the ESU um, for hooking the proto throttle into the system. It really is personal preference because I mean even here in town, there's guys here that I operate with. One's got NCE, one's got Digitrax, one has Easy DCC still. Actually, a
Hmm.
lot of guys here in town still have the old Easy DCC stuff. So um, it really is personal preference. It really is. The best thing I can tell you is get what your friends have, or go over to your friend's house and see what they have and play with theirs before you make a decision. Um, they all pretty well do the same thing. The biggest thing is going to be the controller, how it feels in your hand,
Yep.
what you're trying to do. Personally, I like the Digitrax because I was able to memorize the controller for programming when I did installs.
Yep.
So I could blow through any programming CV and not even have to look at the throttle because I knew where all the buttons were. Um, so I mean, that's really what it is for me. It's a lot of, I had that with the club. I liked it a lot. I got to memorize it. NCE's got a good product. Easy DCC is super simple, but I don't believe it's made anymore. You have to find scraps of it now.
Ugh.
Um, the ESU system is nice. My only complaint is that I'm not a big fan of the touchscreen, and I think a lot of that is from having Digitrax for so long and having the proto throttle. Um, I don't like having to look at my throttle when I operate trains, and that's part of the reason I don't ever use that throttle when I operate. I'm almost exclusively on the proto throttle when I run.
Sure.
Um, I don't like having to look down and make sure I'm pressing the right buttons because my layout's small enough to where I actually have to worry about like using the bell and the horn and all those bits and pieces. So um, it's not a bad system. I still do use the throttle when I run Steam, and I'll use it occasionally because you can program the side buttons to have your bell and horn. But like I said, it's just I had Digitrax for so long. That's what I normally gravitate to.
Sure. Yeah, I'd have to say I'd echo a lot of the comments that Shane, um, you know, says here. And if you're part of a local club, I'd go check that out and see what they're using, because that's how I got started with Digitrax. I joined a club here in town, and that's what they had. And they said, hey, if you want to run trains here, you got to get a Digitrax. So I started with that, and it's a good system. ESU is a good is a good system. I have the ESU set up on my current layout. I would agree with the touchscreen bits and bytes, but I do love the interactivity with the is it the not the Rail Pro, but the Railcom
Mhm.
system that it has with all my other ESU. So I'm a firm believer in staying in the same ecosystem in terms of decoders and throttle system and those types of things. So, but again, that's personal preference. I mean, nowadays you can, with the advent of Bluetooth technology, basically all you need is a power source and some Bluetooth decoders in a tablet, and away you go, right?
Yeah, it really
It's
opens up a lot.
yeah. So there's multiple options out there. I would if I had to give any advice on it, again, it would be echoing what Shane says: do what your friends are doing, but then do your own research. And you know if if you want to have a big layout with multiple throttles, probably want something that's going to be you know flexible, like Digitrax or something like that. If it's just you on your own, maybe NCE is the way to go. So, but anyways, this is a good question, I think.
It's a valid question. I feel like I get that one a lot, and like Andy and I both said, you just kind of have to get out there and try things and see what you like. And I am seeing a lot of comments here that are um, a lot of commenters, other guys are saying the Raspberry Pis and whatnot, and it's so easy to build your own DCC system if you're on a Wi-Fi base, like if you're running an app on your phone or a tablet or something like that. It's that's an option
That's
too.
what I
So,
use.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
so
what I used. And I had Digitrax and I had ProRail. Was it ProRail?
Rail Pro.
Oh, Rail Pro.
Real Pro.
Yeah.
And Rail Pro, the only reason I got rid of it is because they would not interface with the proto throttle. They wouldn't deal with the proto throttle, so I got rid of it because I wanted a proto throttle.
Mhm.
And then I, was talking with our, friend Martin Jenkins down in Australia, Marty's Train Shed, and who's in here, and he hooked me up with one of the Raspberry Pi Sprague things, and I won't ever look back. It's more, I think layout size has a lot to do with it also, because for what I'm doing, that's more than enough. I'm running one locomotive, so yeah, DC there, put that in the list
Yeah.
there, Andy.
It
We're gonna
is.
have to,
Absolutely, that is.
Yeah.
that's an
So
absolute.
we're gonna. I think that's.
I think we should move on.
Yeah, we should certainly move on because we got a couple more topics we need to cover tonight. But thank you, Joe, for the good questions. And yeah, I think that'll be a one that we'll bring up here soon is DCC systems. Let's have a knockdown drag out fight about which one's better and why everyone else is wrong. So that's going to be a podcast on its own, and we'll go from there. But anything else tonight, Shane? I know we kind of put you on the spot, but
No, you're fine. I mean, that's really the latest thing I've worked on. Like I
Sure.
said, the magazine, I want to get out there. Like I said, we put a
For
lot of work
sure.
into it. It's a great product. And then, I mean, really, we could go through that whole Iowa scaled website and find stuff to just rave about because those guys
Yeah.
make some fantastic stuff. But
they've been guests on the show a couple of times, and I'm always impressed with what they put out. And again, they do not pay us a dime here at Second Section. Their products stand up on their own. So go check them out. I'll add them to the show notes as well. So thanks, Shane, for that.
Yep.
All right. So that's going to bring hashtag not sponsored to a close. And good questions, comments from the section crew tonight. We're going to take our second commercial break, and we're going to kick it over to the Greasy Meat Hands band as they introduce our next segment. It never gets old.
that funk,
It's
a little bit of blues, a little bit of funk.
Yeah. It's
that's-
these guys are an eclectic group. It's fantastic. I thought they played Letterman once or twice or something like that, or maybe it was one of the late shows. But anyways, we're back. It's time for the short line of the show. And this where are we? Where are we in the United States, Mike?
We are in Kansas. We're going to Kansas, and it happens to be Shane's home state, since he's
No, Missouri actually.
Well, Missouri.
It's just a little ways over there.
Little ways away. It's on the other side.
Oh my gosh.
Whatever.
Mike is a product of the Wisconsin public school system.
I am.
Shows how much attention he pays to me when we talk about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, right.
I don't pay attention.
I'm well aware. It's why we have this problem.
I mean, you know that.
I'm well aware. It's why we
Well
have
aware.
this problem, Mike.
So, okay, so here's the deal. Shane and I did a lot of talking about the short line of the show, and one of the parameters has always been no Watco, no Genesee, Wyoming, none of the conglomerate rail things. And I started digging into it, and I'm like, dude, there's like none. Like almost every one is owned by one of those guys. He's like, well, there's this one place. And I'm like, okay. And he sent it to me, and I'm like, you're kidding. So how would you feel about modeling a railroad based off of an airport commission? sounds weird, right? Sounds just off the wall. How about the fact that the railroad is, what'd you come up with, Shane? 2.5 miles long?
Yeah, 2.51 or something to that effect. from end to
2.51
end.
miles long, end to end. 2.51 miles long. And for you Wisconsin people, their locomotive is a former Wisconsin Central switch engine. One of them is. So, without further ado, that's French. So now we got
Not
Latin.
Latin.
Not Latin. Now it's French, and now we're doing that.
The second section podcast where you can learn many languages
Yeah. What is going on here?
and master none. And also the second section podcast, home of the unprepared host,
Oh,
where
absolutely. You know, this
screen
is
sharing is optional when talking on a video podcast.
yeah. So here we go. The Johnson County Airport Commission.
Looks like a DC-9, not a SW-1500.
It's probably some kind of a Lear job, but it's a 3-engine thing, which is kind of interesting. But if you come down here, down on
Oh,
their
there we
webpage,
go.
they actually have a railroad. It's it's 2.5 miles long, and they actually serve 7, I believe it's 7 different industries. And they actually have their rates and everything right here for all the world to see, which is actually kind of interesting to see how a railroad that size charges for cut stuff, and it's actually really interesting. So here are the industries that they serve. Wausau Supply, which we figured out is a lumber or a building products, building materials. They got a steel and pipe supply company, chemical plant. I believe there's one of these is a plastics plant. JBS Swift. Would that be the same kind of JBS that like we have in here in Green Bay that has the slaughterhouses and stuff like that for like meat packing and stuff? Would that be the same thing? Not 100% sure on that, but these are the industries that they serve. And I'm going to pull up Google Maps here quick. And I'm just going to, here's the airport. So Shane, you said that this is what side of the airport is this?
Directions wise?
Yeah, this is like
that's the west side of the airport where your cursor is, yes.
So this is just all that they do is right over in this area here. And that's it. All these industries in this industrial park. And we'll go right down to the very end of the line, which literally just is the end of a line. That's it right there. That's all the further they go.
What is that? A pile of trash cans?
Looks
at the end there.
It looks just like it's a big giant pile of something.
Just put a pile of rubble there at the end of the line.
We'll just take a little trip down the whole line here because this will be fun.
This is my favorite part of the show is where we follow along on the rail line on Google Maps.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
like it's for me, it's fascinating. Like if I'm bored at work, and don't tell my boss this, but like I totally will just pull up Google Maps or Google Earth and just.
Oh, you could really do some good research on that.
And just follow rails all across the nation.
Yeah, especially if you can get some places where they have good street views.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. That you could really find some things out there. But this is going to be our first little stop right here. And this is a location where, correct me if I'm wrong, Shane, but they keep their engines right here as a rule. Because I mean, you can see where I know you took some photos for me of this of the railroad, mm-hmm. And this is one of the spots you got pictures of it, right?
Yeah, so that's where they keep the second engine, and it's also their maintenance warehouse shed type deal. They keep a lot of spare tracks, some switch stands, some other bits and pieces laying around or in the building.
Is this like their office?
I would assume so, judging by how well. There is a teeny tiny little shed over by that center yard where I shot that second engine.
Yeah,
but it's literally like an 8x8. So I would imagine that would have to be the office.
Yeah. So now that there's not a lot to this place. A lot of neat little track configurations. So like here you're coming into a 3-track. You're right here, you're coming into a 2-track deal.
Yeah, a little sliding or a little spur off of what we will call the quote unquote main line.
The main line, which would be right here.
That looks like
this
tankers.
Here they got I believe this is a chemical place. This must be the chemical plant that was in there. So, just looking at it rail wise, so now you have tank cars, and they've got quite a few in here. Obviously there must have been a crossover here at one point for whatever reason that they took it out, or Google Maps has just got the picture all messed up. One of those two. But did you figure out, Shane, is this another scale right here?
No, it's another. It's got to be a scale because there looks like there used to be a set of slip tracks because there's a set of rails that looks like just inside of that. Yeah. And then that building was pretty empty except for a couple monitors. So I'm assuming it is a scale.
That's cool. So there you. Okay, go ahead, Andy.
So am I to believe that Shane's going to be sharing a bit of some rail fanning here with us of this railroad?
A little bit.
Okay.
Here in a second. Yeah. Like, how about right here? We'll get back to the Google Maps. Let's see here. Where's that? There's the building right here that we talked about first.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's that maintenance depot up on the north end.
Tell me that doesn't have a whole bunch of character to it, hey? I mean, that screams scratch building project, if you ask me.
Or a nice backdrop flat. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
So there's been a couple of comments. John 2618 and SoCo Olds 455 have both commented this would be a really cool shelf layout.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you were to try to model this in what do we figure N scale, you could almost do the entire thing like 1-to-1 almost
yeah,
in N scale.
If you chop a little bit up, you could almost I think it was Tom Klomoski's layout, his footprint that I referenced to with there's a couple industries down on that lower yard that spur off that you would definitely need your own or a leg to put them on, but you could definitely make this easily in a decent sized bedroom or a small area in a basement. And no more than, I think what we talked in scale, you could be under a foot wide.
Yeah.
Or maybe a foot and a half and still make that more than workable.
Now, for all of you locomotive aficionados, which we all are, this is an SW900. Single stack. Looks like an SW1200. It just has a single stack. Look at where the beacon is. Right in the middle of the long hood. Right next to the bell.
I can't see that, Mike. Can you zoom in just a hair? Well, now I can see it. Look at that, because it was hidden by the profile of the smokestack.
Yeah, right here.
And if you go back a couple, there's one looking from the cab towards the front that shows out a little better.
Okay.
Oh, that's really cool.
Cab towards the front, like this one, right? Like right there.
Yeah, you can see that.
Is that a stratolite beacon?
It is a stratolite beacon on
Look at
top
that.
of everything else.
Olds. Right.
So
stratolite beacon
in the middle of the long hood. I mean, now I don't know what to think of this. This is I'm a switch I'm like a huge switch engine guy, and this blew me away.
A per diem aficionado, as Split Rock would say.
Yeah. So, but here,
I mean, it's a pretty, again, going back to what you talked about earlier in the show, basic paint scheme, right? Yep. So the long hood, it's all yellow. Is that green or blue? I can't really tell.
Blue. This one looks blue. Yeah, to me at least, I think
it's kind of a navy blue color.
Navy blue, and then there are some chevrons on the rear pilot. I think there are some on the front pilot as well.
Yes.
But yeah.
Yeah, on the front pilot as well. But I
Yeah.
mean, and then on the other thing is the headlights have been replaced. At one time, you can only assume that this had a single bulb headlight in it on each end, and they replaced each end with a twin sealed beam, which is just a round plate here. I'll zoom in here a little bit.
Oh yeah, look at that.
So this is just a replacement, and they just bolted it up. It bolts right on. So that alone is another modeling little deal that you can. Shane, this is an incredible photo. Zooming in on it is it's a treat. Just being able to get so much clarity out of it. That's really good. Usually you get pixelization. Holy cow.
So did you take that with your what is it, the pixel shot?
This is a Polaroid.
Yeah, my cool pics, my
His
Nikon
cool
cool
pics.
pics.
His Nikon cool pics. But this is their switch engine that they have. Their little switch engine.
So Tim Moran has a question. It says, what was the original railroad for this trackage? Do either of you know?
I do not know. I do not know. I would venture to say it would probably be Santa Fe. Possibly.
That would be my guess.
Okay.
Just because it's, being in Kansas and the area and stuff, I would think
I know we haven't
Santa
quite
Fe.
got that far yet, but it is right off of the when we get close to the south end of the railroad, it is right off of the BNSF Transcon, right before you get to the actual town of Gardner, Kansas. So if it's not Santa Fe, it was something relatively close. And I don't know history on how much further this line went or if it went all that far or not, but I'll do a little digging here while Mike continues to talk about it, though.
So here's their other locomotive. And if you notice, the yellow one had reporting marks JCAC.
Yep.
This one is JCAX. So they have actually carry two different reporting marks. This locomotive started out life looking like that. Well, actually, it didn't even look like that when it started out. But when I was running it, it looked like this. I've actually physically run this locomotive tons of times.
So, Mike, did you try and bring up a different picture?
I did. Did it not come up?
No, I'm still seeing the U.S. Air Force one here.
Oh, well, hold on a minute. Let me see if I can. Well, I don't know what to do.
While Mike is looking for that, I have a little bit of information here.
Okay,
the initial rail lines were installed by the U.S. Navy when it was operated as the Naval Air Station Olathe. The Navy fleet ceased flight operations out of that location in the late 60s. It was turned over to the commission in, it looks like 1973.
Wow.
It was working to connect the railroad to, at that time, the Santa Fe. Use the existing rail lines to service customers that were along there.
Wow.
That's cool. Let me see here.
So Tom Klomoski asks, who do they interchange with?
BNSF.
Yeah.
BNSF. That's awesome.
All right.
Are we ready, Mike?
How's that?
I don't know.
Can you see that?
Better. Yes.
How about that? Do you see that?
I see that.
Okay, when I was running it on Wisconsin Central, this is what the locomotive looked like. It was one of the units that had the pine tree. It was a former, I believe, SP unit, or cotton belt. I can't remember, SSW, SP.
Yeah, so
anyway,
Old says it's an old SP unit. The number boards are a giveaway.
Yep, and it had the pine tree logo on it. It was your typical switch engine, is what it for us. It was just a typical switch engine, and now it looks like this. And this paint scheme, being an Air Force vet and having a grandfather who served in the Army Air Corps, and my dad was in the Air Force. I was in the Air Force. I love this paint scheme. This
Yeah.
screams Air Force to me. Old World War II style, little throwback to the World War II style
The
of
star.
with the star. It's just an absolutely gorgeous paint scheme. Again, wouldn't be very difficult to paint. They kept the lines on it really relatively clean.
Yeah.
Right below the, everything's square right below the radiator all the way back. And then I think you got some of the back, and yeah, you did here. The back again is just the cab is just all gray. It's
Yeah.
just a solid gray cab. So, not a real lot to do to make this a beautiful looking locomotive
Mm-hmm.
in any scale, really. And the decals are fairly, you could probably get the decals made really easily. I just, I'm just in love with this paint scheme. This is just fantastic. And somebody added an air conditioner to it because we never had air conditioning. We just
Open the window.
opened the window, right?
Yeah, just open the window.
So now I want to go back to this Google Maps.
Yeah,
So
have at it.
we're coming back. We're past the airport. Well, we're kind of almost past the airport, and there's this tail track here that
Yeah.
seemingly goes this way,
Right past those bombers. I mean,
right past the airplanes, but
Yeah.
it stops at the road, and I don't know if that went someplace at one time or not, because this almost looks like it was a man-made retention pond. So who knows? But this is kind of an interesting little piece of trackage. And then we come over here to what we could only call yard A-ish. Shane, would that be a good way of putting it?
I mean, it's extremely valid.
Yeah. Okay, so you have 6 cars sitting here. So if you took these 6 and doubled it, you could get probably 24 cars between these 2 tracks right here. And then you have the main line. And now this other runaround here. And here's another plant. Here's the Carry Ingredients and Flavors plant, which gets tank cars. So again, another plant with tank cars that you get. Now we keep on going, and now you have a little run, a little bit, from that point to right down here.
A couple hundred yards of some good single track.
Yeah, and then you come into what I would say would be a track designer's hangover, maybe. I'm not okay. So reason I say that, you'll see why I say that. I mean, Shane, what do you think? Do you think that's an accurate statement?
I mean, I feel like it's what you get when you have spare space and you bought too many switches at the hobby shop.
Yes, that's exactly it. So you come off of the main into a siding, and now you have a crossover. Okay, so you made a runaround here, which is fine. But now you cross back over, but they're far enough away to have another runaround in here. And I'm not even going to get into going back this way yet. Now we're going to keep on going. And we have yet another crossover to make another small runaround. And then we have the other end of the whole menagerie to create yet again another runaround. So what is that? Five different runarounds in one section of track. And each one holds what? What's this? How many are in this one? You got 1, 2, 3, probably 6 cars.
5 or 6 safely.
5 or 6 safely. But right here you have Wausau Supply off of one of them. What is so funny?
David's comment there.
David Winthard said it was probably this thing was designed by an S-scaler.
Oh, probably. Yeah,
Split Rock says this short line really gives you the runaround.
it does. But I mean, come on. Here's the the brunt of their industries that they serve. You have a Wausau Supply right down here. There's this place right here that looks almost like a transload facility of some sort.
Hmm.
Then you come over here. Here's JBS Foods, which we were wondering about that, and it looks almost as if they're getting covered hoppers of maybe feed. I don't know. Or maybe it's bone meal being loaded out. Something along those lines. I'm not sure. But you could get covered hoppers in there. Then you come over this way, and you have, what is that? Heartland Precision Fasteners is right here. And you have another place that gets, how do you pronounce that?
The Elliott.
Okay.
They make plastic bags and other plastic products. I looked them up while you were talking there.
All right.
This is the best short line of the show yet. This is by far the best we've had on the show yet.
So then you come over here to this place, and it's steel and pipe supply. And Shane, you said this goes into the building?
Yeah, so it goes into that building.
Did you take a picture of this?
Yes, there's a picture in there.
Wrong.
It's closer to the about the middle. Right there. So
thanks. Like I can see you pointing. Right here?
What's right in the center of your screen, Mike? Listen, I'll fist fight you from across the internet. It's fine.
Is this it? No, that's not it.
that building on the right. Yeah, that's it. Right there.
That's it.
That opening on the right is the opening.
Yeah, that right there is the opening. And then this is the other place right next to it. Obviously.
That's very descriptive.
Just the best color commentary for short line of the show.
And then we had this thing, and it was right next to the other thing.
The train that goes over to the
sour brands, whatever this is. What do they make?
Seasoning. They do seasonings.
They do. Yeah, they probably spice or seasonings, right?
So, and they get tank cars in. So then we're gonna go back over here, onto the main line, through the drunken yard, and then you basically have, I think, is that it? All the way, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, because that's the main line there.
Here's the BNSF Transcon, and then
right there,
there's the connection. Now, some of the here's some photos of some of the industries that Shane took. Again, easy to model. Not bad, nothing horrible.
Nothing you couldn't get out of a Walthers or a Rick's product kit.
No. Yeah. This is I don't know.
That's that yard there looking south.
Yeah, that's the whole, all the runarounds looking. It's something. I don't know what you would do about all these poles, though. That would be you could actually, well, maybe, because that would be kind of hard to do if you were trying to model it, wouldn't it? You'd have to just exclude those, I would think.
I mean, I would. If I was building it, I would make my walkway probably close to it'd be on the left side of the yard, and then the right side would be against the wall. I'd model the street and then do the houses as a backdrop.
Oh, that's, yeah.
And then, just drop those poles, because, man, I can only imagine the amount of fishing line you'd have to run to do that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the greasy meat hands would just come and take those poles right out. You go, you go to get your first runaround, and it's just going to be a disaster.
But here's that JBS. Here's that JBS location right here.
Yeah.
Again, that screams like a Rick's building, doesn't it? I mean, it's just.
Yeah, it's one of those metal fab buildings, right? It's just
a prefab building.
Prefab metal building that, you can. This. I mean, everyone's been saying it in the chat tonight. This just screams, shelf layout.
Yeah,
big time.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also I found this picture of a Santa Fe caboose on someplace on the property, which we don't think it's there anymore. That's from 8 years ago already. So, but at one time they also had an 80 tonner,
Wow.
a little 80 tonner.
Mhm.
So yeah, if anybody's got any questions, there's no real YouTube presence. There's not a lot of video. I haven't found any video of them. And not a lot of presence on Flickr, things of that nature. But what a cool little railroad! What a cool, neat little short line to if you're a beginner and you want to dip your toe into doing stuff, there you go.
Yeah.
You only need one engine really, and you can buy. You don't have to have a whole lot of freight cars, and you're
Yeah,
off and running.
Yeah, it's a really cool prototype.
Yeah.
And then if you have extra switches, you know what to do.
Obviously, yeah. There was a run on switches, but if it was an old Navy railroad at one point, those were probably utilized a lot. There's probably stuff on all of them.
Right. You don't know what if it was an old railhead for the Navy or, air station, what they were doing in there. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's cool. That is that was an awesome short line of the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Shane. And
thank
I
you,
thank
Shane.
Thank you, Shane, for the suggestion of it and for doing some legwork on those photos.
No problem.
So those photos, those were pretty darn clear for a Cool Pix.
Yeah.
What do you have? I'm going to ask the question because, so first of all, Thomas Klomoski, thank you for the comment. Best short line of the show yet.
Hey,
what a great find.
Kentucky, we're going to Kentucky next.
Kentucky, yeah, next. The Bourbon Trail, right? Okay, the Bourbon Railroad. That's what we're going to do. But all funny business aside there, Shane, what kind of camera did you use to get those types of shots?
I actually sketched and watercolored, so I don't use the camera to say.
Man.
Yeah.
Wow. And to catch all that yesterday with the sun going down, that is fantastic.
Oh yeah.
The man works quick.
Especially
that
99.95
that we got from you. That's a bargain.
Yeah. Yeah, that late Kansas sun, you got to scribble quick.
Mm-hmm.
No, I shoot on a Nikon D7500.
Okay.
Is my base, and then I've got a handful of lenses. I think the one I normally shoot's 18 to 55, and then I have a 55 to 200 for longer shots.
Right. So, do you have do you take that all with you when you go shooting, or do you kind of plan it out before you go and just pick the gear?
I have a camera bag that I carry with me, and I've had this camera
Nice.
bag since my first camera. It must have been when I was in high school. I got it for Christmas. I had a 3200, and then my wife bought me the 7500 a couple years back, or a year or two back. But I've had this camera bag. It was my mom's from, I don't remember what camera she had before, but it's just skinny enough to keep the 18 to 55 on it. And then I've got my 55 to 200, and then all my spare batteries, my lens pen, my wife's spare SD cards. So yeah, I've been running with this bag forever. Just about every Railfan trip. It's been to Durango. It's chased the big boy twice.
Do you shoot with a tripod or no?
No, most of mine I shoot by hand. I haven't shot on tripod since I was doing video. I quit using tripod not too long after that, because I used to do a lot of video, and then probably when I got picked up with the magazine, I started doing more photos because video only does you so good with the magazine. Yeah. And now I'm about exclusively photos.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. So I guess any questions from the chat about gear or anything like that Shane uses for photos? Do you use that same camera for taking pictures of your models on too?
Yeah, I've actually got a micro lens I put on an 85 millimeter. Ooh, it's over here.
There you go.
Micro lens.
Nice.
And so when I transition from prototype to model stuff, I'll swap out the lenses because you can get better detail and a little more depth in your focus. Mm-hmm. And then I will tripod, because trying to shoot anything in scale by hand, you tend to find out how shaky you are.
Jake. Yeah, shaky Jake.
First. So
yeah.
Yeah, I'll swap out. I'll go to that smaller lens because I get a little bit more depth to it. I also use for like my covers and whatnot. I use a stacking software. So you take a bunch of pictures at different focal points,
Mhm.
put it into the software, and it compiles all those photos and makes one clean picture out of them. That's
Yeah.
what a vast majority of my covers
So
are
are you
stacks of.
using Helicon Focus or
Yes. Yep.
okay? And then there's I think Adobe Photoshop has focus stacking now in it too.
Yeah.
So yeah, Helicon or Photoshop, you can get that effect with. Yeah, it's cool. That's a really cool thing. We'll probably have to do a demo of that sometime on the show on photo stacking and just the results that you can get with like 4 or 5 different pictures. So that's
Yeah. I mean,
cool.
it makes a world of difference,
Yeah,
especially um, specifically in scale, where when you sit down to take your photo and you get
yeah,
close and you've got about this much depth through the entire photo, where you're shooting a scene that it's 8, 9, 10 inches deep. That big boy photo that I put up was from when we shot the in scale one for I want to say it was October's cover of last year.
yeah.
Um, that one that I gave you is easily 7 or more shots stacked up. And
Wow.
7's on the low end. Usually when I'm doing a stack, I want as much detail as possible, especially when they're covers. So I've had
Right. Yeah.
upwards of 20 something photos to a stack, just making sure I get all the little details all the way through. Because there's nothing worse than
That's
getting one layer missing and then it's blurred for that.
in the
I mean, you'll
middle.
see it. It's a hard line
Yeah,
where
it's a
that
line.
focus
Yeah.
stops and then picks back up behind it again.
Right. That's hilarious. And sad that, that's all it takes to ruin a photo, right?
hmm Yeah, one
So
little bit of shake, one little bit of focusing too far back or too far forward, it'll throw a whole photo.
that's awesome. It's a risk. It's a big risk. It's not awesome. It's definitely not awesome.
It is a roll
Um,
of the dice, especially because it's so hard to see when you're out there on a screen on the Nikon.
mhm.
Because a lot of the stuff I do, I take outside because natural light is just so much better than anything you can reproduce with LED inside. So to take everything outside, to set it up, to hope you don't have a windy day and all your stuff blows away. Not that that ever happened to me. But to get it all set up to take 100, 200 photos and then come inside and cross your fingers and hope they're right. It's a roll of the
Right.
dice. There's been a number of times I'd had to go back out the day after and reshoot a set because they just didn't come out.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I'm actually at the point where I'm trying to relearn how to take pictures because I had gotten away from it for so long, and then I got kind of dependent on this thing, you know. And these things take pretty good pictures. I mean,
hmm
don't get me wrong,
Not
they
as
take,
good as that though.
but not as good as an
Yeah.
DSLR. And they're close. They can be close. Because there have been times where I'm sitting there going, well, the heck with it. I know this thing will automatically just do what I need it to do. And that's where I start. Now I'm at the point where I'm like, I want to start getting back into doing that.
Yeah.
The pictures are just a lot nicer, So
Yeah. So let's get on to the topic of your layout here. So we're in the fourth leg of the show here, approaching the second hour of this marathon. So let's talk about your layout a little bit. So we've gone through the Railfanning, we've gone through your work with Model Railroad News. So now you're onto building this portable, shelf layout and end scale that you want to essentially, I guess it's gone through a few transitions and take with you when you move someday, right?
Yeah. So when we first, well, I say we, um, when I first started into looking into this layout, when we moved in, I knew I wanted something. I wanted something to run on, something to do while we were here because I knew we were going to be here for a little while.
Sure.
But I didn't want anything big or in the way. I just watched. If anybody, I'm sure a lot of guys here know Walker Embry had was the Big Turn in Southern at the time, and it was a 4x8 he had in his bedroom. Great layout, but I didn't like how it took up the entire room, and I knew I was going to be working on photo modules and stuff, so I really needed the center of the room to be able to. It needed to be a fluid space, whether I was
Right.
working on a photo module or if we had the Christmas tree or the bunny rabbit or whatever it came down to needing to be in here, it could be in here. So um, I've really like the super detailed stuff. I like the smaller layouts. I like the mobility. So um, I just gravitated towards shelf layout. and I knew I didn't want to make anything bolted to the wall because I don't want to have to pay the apartment complex for ripping out my layout when I go. So it kind of became a freestanding deal, and I spent a long time with AnyRail and a drawing of my room just staring at it. I really did, and actually, I have the first version. I have all the versions. So, like I said, I'm on version 1.3.12 or 13 now. But this was,
So this is track planning with Shane.
yeah, this, I don't know if I call it that. I can think about a handful of other guys that'd be way better at this job. But so this was my room. It's just a little apartment bedroom. I've got a closet over here, a door out to the hallway. So, and I knew I had this was my workbench. I had to have that space, and I had to have somewhere to put my chair. And beyond that, the rest of the room was kind of open. So I started just staring at the space and thinking what I could do. And originally, I thought about doing a layout from in front of the window around the far wall. And I didn't like the way it took up space over here. So I kind of cut that back, and I just did the one wall and the back wall. But then I couldn't get the closet doors open because I knew I had to get in-scale stuff into the closet. So really, the U shape worked out well, and it's divided up into 4 4-foot sections. Like I said, it's at the center here. It's split. So this is one module. This is another module, and it's got a little 4-inch bump where the outside two bolt into the ends of it.
Cool. So this is really neat. So you got what are we looking at here? If we're on the right hand side of the screen, is that like a little yard that is in there?
Yeah, so this was the original base yard because I knew I wanted to have somewhere to stick cars when they weren't going to industries.
Okay.
I needed a little bit of a lead. The top track ended up being put in just because I had the room.
Yeah.
Looking back now, I would have done it differently, but it was the way it was. Looking back now, if I had more switches, I would have just put about 7 crossovers in here. But
right?
just trying to do anything with the space, really. And a lot of this was, at the time, I was kind of set on doing down in the West Bottoms in Kansas City here, there's a spot on the state line where UP switches, and they come out of a yard along the main line into a track, and then they reverse through that track into a complete 180, and they go down State Line Road, and they switch a Cargill plant and a tank car cleanout plant. So the Cargill plant is actually this piece here, and then Mid-South Milling is an industry that is on that leg. In the real world, it comes out and back and then turns and goes back down to the Cargill plant. But in 1-foot in scale, I didn't have that luxury. So I spent a lot of time on this, or spent some time. I wouldn't say a lot of time. Looking at this one, and I drew it, and I taped it up because I had the bench work at this point done. So I went over the blue painter's tape, and I put blue painter's tape down where all the track was, and I set cars up there, and instantly hated it. I didn't like it. It didn't look good. And at that time, I was starting to transition to where I wanted to be able to use it for magazine photos.
Sure.
And the spaces just didn't work at all. Like everything was really close to the edge, so it'd be hard to hide that edge. It just was not a great plan. So
that's a design consideration right there. If you want to rail fan your railroad, keeping the fascia out of the shot.
Yeah. And it's tough to do because especially on those long, narrow sides like that, where you're looking down the layout, at a really shallow angle, that edge will creep up on you very quickly.
Yes, it will. That's interesting. Interesting thought.
We went to design number 2, which of course popped up on the far side. And let me bring this over here.
Hashtag not sponsored. AnyRail is a really good track design software that I've come across. Easy to use. I really like it. Again, they're not sponsored.
Is it free? Is it free or is it?
It's free up to a certain amount of track, and then it's a couple bucks to pay for the software, but it's a one-time thing.
Yeah, it's not a recurring subscription. It's I think I paid $50.
Something like that, 45 maybe. Yeah, I think you get 50 pieces of track free, and then everything after that, or you have to pay after that. But you also get in the user libraries, they have people that have uploaded buildings of different sizes and signals and stuff like that up here. So you get a lot more in the paid version.
Right. And they have multiple scales and different types of track layouts as well. So it's it's pretty good. So
Uh,
so before we get into this, Shane, there's two questions from the chat. One's from Ralph Renzetti. He said, "Is that you and Brooke operating in there? Your wife is Brooke is she a trained aficionado as well, or is she just an accomplice by
absolutely
proxy?"
not. Absolutely not. I don't think I could probably get her to come in here and hold something for me while I'm in the middle of doing something, and then she'd hand it right back. But
Yeah,
operating, I highly doubt. I took her
yeah,
to a train show one time, and after we left, she said absolutely never again.
yeah.
She said, I love you to pieces, but never again. And I go to train shows by myself now. So,
Yeah, my wife's the same way. We went to maybe one or two, and yeah, she said the end of that. Split Rog asked, for your railroad, are you doing switch list operations or car card and waybill?
switch list. I actually have the JMRI ops panel put together for my layout.
Nice.
So, when my trains, I have 3 trains technically. One that starts in make believe staging, it comes to the yard. One that works the industries, and one that comes from the yard back to staging. When the boxcars hit the staging section, they will flip and randomly route to different industries. So I can run the same 3 trains every time and shouldn't put a boxcar in the same spot when they come back.
And then Joe DeLuso has a question for you. Other than the cool pics, what's the best starting camera? But let's save that till the end. We'll let you
Yeah.
get through your layout here. So I'm gonna write a note here about the cool pics. And Joe, we're gonna get back to you on that one in just a second. But good question.
Yep. So this was version 2, and as you can see, did not make it real far in version 2.
Yeah,
Um,
almost
this
there.
version, I got rid of the state line aspect of everything, and then I thought to myself, well, I wanted to take trains somewhere, so I'll do a hidden staging. So I was going to allow for a couple inches to have a backdrop and then have a track behind it for staging. And I started taping it up and immediately hated it and scrapped it.
I
So
see a theme here.
this one was pretty short lived.
Yeah.
I won't go through all. 15 iterations of the new track plan. I'll bring up an early one and I'll bring up the current one. Give me just a second here.
Oh yeah. Well, this is much improved production as the show goes on. The producers quit hanging out with the greasy meat hands band, and
Yeah.
now we're getting some good results here. This is nice, Shane.
Yeah. So this is a very early version of the current layout. So the 1 point is the bench work still stayed the same.
Mhm.
1.3, the track work variations changed. And then everything after the 1.3 is different times have changed the building. So this was 1.3.2. I like this one a lot more. I like the long runaround for your trailing point industries. It really
Yep.
makes you have to work at putting your cars out and getting around them. The other end felt a little tight and a little busy when I built this one. And some of the other buildings, like one of these, I think it's a Rick Products building that I had over here. I built it and didn't like it and got rid of it. And then this silo or the elevator here, I ended up getting rid of too after building it.
Hmm.
It just didn't work in the space. It left a lot of open negative space for shooting photos here. So I'll take you to what is today's version. Because, like I said, I won't go through all 15. So it's just a work desk. We scrapped the entire layout, and we just went to a workbench. Really, we just put everything back in a box.
Yep.
So like Mike said, recurring theme.
That's burnout.
Which is what you do, Shane. I mean, it is.
This is sell everything and get rid of it all. No, if we back out, you can actually see the layout.
Hey, the guy's moved now finally.
Yeah, so they got tired. At least this guy did. This guy just kind of stepped over a little bit. So over the 4 years I've been here, the 3 years I've really had the layout up. So many different buildings have come out, like this UPS. It's UPS transloading, but that's changed the name. But this warehouse kit and the one over on this left corner are both new Walthers kits for the concrete warehouses that have just come out. I want to say a year and some ago. And they just fit better. They're really nice backdrop, like flats to make. This one here is too. This other tin cannery, whatever it's supposed to be. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they just worked a lot better. They were better than the elevator and the other weird car shop looking things. So same premise as the last one. The yard stayed in the same place in all three of them. There's a little engine facility for being able to tuck the engines away because there was a really great, I think it's an Osborne Models kit. It's a single bay engine shed. It's a wood kit. I
Sure.
really liked it, so I knew I had to put it somewhere. Access roads for the yard. Coming out of there, you've got the main drag and the runaround, which this whole area is kind of loosely based off of Fairfax, which in Kansas City is northwest of downtown.
Okay.
It's a little switching area. It used to be ex-Mopac. It's now UP. There's still a lot of
Hmm.
switching done down in that area.
Mopac. I like that.
Mopac.
Yep. My
Mopac.
Yeah.
my
I
grandfather
love
used
the
to work for them
Mopac.
way back when he started with the railroad when he was 19. He retired with UP, and he told me a lot of stories of working over on the Fairfax side. So, but I used to work over on the south side of Fairfax. So I live up on the north side of Kansas City. To get to work, I would have to drive through Fairfax every day. So it was kind of something easy for me to go and hit and see every day and easy to get prototype photos. So the feeling of Fairfax kind of stuck. Some of the stuff I put into it is not like AMR Recycling Advantage Metal was one of my customers when I used to do heavy equipment repair.
Sure.
They're over by the KCT yard, but this being in a flat open scrap yard on the front of the layout worked really well because it was easy to shoot over. It was easy to shoot through. Some of the track were a little fancy, like the switchback industry here, just because I could, not because I had to. I was going to extend AMR out underneath this highway bridge, but I decided this would be a maintenance away track because I've got a couple pieces of maintenance away equipment I don't ever use. So it gave me an excuse to kick those out. The layout was also kind of a test for a lot of things too, because I was able to build a lot of stuff that I had never done before. I think at the time Tim Warris was doing single point switches for some reason. So the track going up
Oh
to the
yeah.
UPS transload is actually a single point that I scratch built from one of his templates. So
Huh.
there's a lot of stuff on the layout that really doesn't make sense when you think of it from a prototype standpoint, but it is just something I wanted to try, and it's my layout, so I put
Right.
it in there.
So it sounds like you touched on a couple of questions that Split Rock asked here. He says, "What's the story of the layout? You know, the era, the location, prototype influence. What era are you particularly modeling? Is it 70s, 80s, 90s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or modern?
For me, it's about 2015-ish, and I smudge up and
2015-ish?
down a little bit of equipment. So
Okay.
I smudge down tier 4 stuff because I think it's neat, but there's some of the, like the UP got rid of the MP15s about
Mm,
2013, 2014.
yeah.
And I really like some of that older equipment. So I smudged some of that stuff up, but there's not much large power on this layout because it is primarily switching. I think the biggest thing they have at the Fairfax yard now is actually ST40s. And
Oh,
I can
wow.
show some pictures of that Fairfax yard here in a bit. I've got tons of photos from when Tony and I run around, but about 2015 or so,
Okay.
that Fairfax area, like I said, it's kind of a proto freelance, I guess, of sorts, because it's got elements of Fairfax, but a lot of stuff that I wanted to include. So it's a loose
Yeah.
base.
Yeah. Cool. That's it's interesting. And Chuck, I just want to touch on Chuck's point here. You had a great Shane has a great point on not eating up the entire train or the entire room or even a train room with all layout. Having space for a workbench, or like a workstation or a computer, and just being able to possibly move around without bumping into stuff too. That's a real plus when you're designing your layout.
Yeah, especially and being in a third floor apartment, we're not exactly killing it on room. So the nice thing is, if I ever need the center of this for any reason,
Yeah.
the two end modules, like I said, they're bolted into the sides. I can take them and lay them flat against this, and this whole layout only takes up 2 foot 6 inches on that back wall, so I get the
Oh yeah.
entire center of the room.
Yeah. Nice.
So I
Yeah.
was trying
Very
to scan
cool.
through there and see if there's anything else. GM plant is or used to the Santa Ana Railroad. GM plant is still there, and UP switches a ton of auto racks over there.
Really.
Tons of them. It's hard to see because they switch them into the east side, which is on the back side of the plant, so you don't ever get to see the operation. But I've been stopped by those trains once or twice when they come across the main drag coming through Fairfax there, and it's a slow drag coming out of GM.
89 feet at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's just a glorious pain that you get to enjoy. Yeah,
So
so
I'm
very
trying to
like
see.
Santa Ana Industrial Lead Railroad Model Railroad says, yeah, it's a cool switching layout for N scale. It's a really really awesome little layout you got in here in this room, and looks like a lot of opportunity for switching, a lot of operations here.
Yeah, so the big thing I wanted to build was something to switch. Um, the one thing I really worked on this layout is the C words in model railroading is cropping and condensing. I don't like condensing. I like to crop. I like everything to feel natural in size. I don't like to smash too much into a space, especially when you're
Sure.
shooting it for photos. The one way to really show it's a model is to try and jam as much as you can into a space instead of giving it its natural um, its natural room to breathe and exist as a building. You know, that's why this whole corner here is just parking lot, and it is 2 foot by 1 foot 4 inch of just plaster parking lot. But when you look at that scene, it looks really good with all that space behind it because that's what that industry needs. There's trailers that go in this side and a parking lot for customers on this side.
There's something to be said about, the not just the scale of the models, but the scale of the scenery around it too, right? If you have just a tiny little parking lot, in there, it's not going to make any sense and it's not going to look right.
Mhm.
And so I know we've had, what is it? Santa Ana Industrial Lead Model Railroad says negative space. It's a recurring theme on our show here.
Tom Klomoski talked about that a lot,
Yeah.
about
Boomer
having
talked about it a
Boomer
lot
talked
too.
about it too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference, especially on the front of your layout. I mean, anywhere you're going to shoot photos from it's really its own design element in itself because you have to consider
Yeah.
what's in front of the camera, what's behind what you're shooting, what's next to what you're shooting. It's a lot of thinking in terms of when you build it because you really have to evaluate what you're putting where.
Right. Andy Crawford, crop versus condense. I love that definition. I'm stealing that conversationally.
I, I I I don't remember who it was I was talking to when I come up with that a couple years ago, but it really is one of my absolute favorite go-tos for explaining building a layout when it comes to prototype switching and spacing. Because to me, it is the two C words to live by that make a big difference. Is because I would rather cut down and use a quarter of an industry for it to feel right in size versus to model the whole industry when the building's 2 cars long. It
I,
doesn't feel right.
yeah, that's we saw what was it, William Sampson on Sue the Milwaukee Road on his YouTube channel, and he's the grain elevator with the head house and being, what is it, something to the tune of over 150 feet tall,
Hmm.
right? And how that monolith dwarfs any rail cars that are by it anyway, right? And just to make it look right, it is a really interesting concept to try and balance.
And then when you went and put the Walters version next to the
Yeah.
actual version, that the scale version, it's like night and day.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
you got such a sense of size. You know, uh,
Hmm.
you felt like you're looking at that scene that he put together, talking about that. You feel almost like same thing as like what you're saying, Shane. You feel as if you're actually looking at something more prototypically correct.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And it just makes a world of difference.
Yeah, I mean, even just looking at it when you're operating or from eye, just putting your eye down there looking at it, it really does make a world of difference.
Yeah. And Split Rock said editing your layout is a tough thing to do for most model railroaders. And then Ralph Franzetti asked, what happened to selective compression?
It's
Nothing happened to it.
it's not a word I like to use. I don't know. I don't find a happy medium between the two. I mean, I guess there could be, if it really depends on your approach. But to me, I'm more of crop than condense. I think when you start making things smaller, they stop working well in the space at the prototype level. Now, if you're just trying to jam as much as you can, like my first layout where I was just trying to get as much in as possible, or the second version,
Yeah.
sure, condense as much as you want. But when it comes to shooting photos, getting the spacing right, the more you compress on it, it works less and less in your favor.
Yeah, I honestly, last night I was talking with a fellow who's helping me build a bridge for the model railroad that I'm putting together, and we had this exact discussion last night about scale and compression versus omitting
Hmm.
certain parts of the bridge, because the bridge is 51 inches long, and then at the end of the day we engineered something that we could essentially keep the whole bridge intact. But it was a, we laid things out. It didn't look right, condensed or compressed. It just didn't look right. So we tried to engineer something that would look more appealing to the eye. It's really
Mhm.
interesting.
It
You
really
Interesting.
almost,
makes a difference.
like Tom Klomoski was saying. I think he made a comment about it. It makes you to make things look more realistic. You need those negative space areas, right? So, like when you have talking about that bridge, Andy, you need space on either side of it so it
Right.
doesn't look so
Weird.
awkward. Well,
Right.
so awkward, because all of a
Right.
sudden you have huge industry on one side, industry on the other side, and this ginormous bridge with nothing that really pertains to it. It's yeah, you need those design elements, content compress.
Yeah. Yeah,
There's
there's some good.
there's a lot of C's.
Yeah, there's a lot of good comments coming in from the section crew tonight, but and then Thomas Klomoski says, Shane, good point. Look at your model railroad through the lens of your camera and see how it really appears. It's like a football coach looking at the game film,
Yeah,
Yep.
from what happened the night before, right? It is a really good tool.
that's
It's a
why
good.
when I built the layout, before I laid any track, any cork, I put everything down in blue painter's tape, and I've got a photo somewhere.
It's an
I'm
interesting technique to start with for planning.
It's a really easy way to not like what you have, pull it up, and there's no consequences.
Yeah,
Here,
good point.
I'll pull this over. So this was the layout in design, and you can see my this would be my track catalog up here.
I see all the runarounds and crossovers there. That looks
Yes,
really nice with the hung on the wall.
yeah. So let me. Did I mess that up? No, I didn't. Okay. Oh yeah, I did. Ta-da! There we go. So yeah, I mean that's what I did was every bit of track I marked with blue painter's tape, and 1 inch wide is about in scale track width.
Sure.
And then all the switches I laid out where they would actually be, and then you can see pencil drawings from when I first started to sketch it versus where it's at now. And actually, this is a really early photo because this switch is now outside the main, or is off the main line instead of on it. But yeah, it was really easy to pull up all that stuff. And then also, before I built any buildings, I cut them out of cardboard. So like
Yeah.
this building's actually a bit longer now. But like the UPS building's down there under that pile of junk. The
And
building that was supposed to be here that's not there anymore is cut out. And it was a really easy way to see if I built a kit in full, how much space is it going to take? How does it fit? How much of it can I cut off?
so you put actual footprints of the building. So you basically just took an old Amazon box, cut it up to
Mhm.
what you thought the footprint was going to be, and laid it on the layout, and essentially created that mock-up. Santa Ana Industrial Lead Model Railroad says mock-ups for the win.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a great way to see what your kits are going to take, how much of your kit you're going to have spare, how the space works. And I ended up putting cars out, and I actually hand operated, quote unquote, the layout before I laid track. I put all the cars out, and then I pretended to run an engine around and pick up cars and kind of see how long it would take and how it felt and how my runarounds were. And because I really didn't want to have to go back and fix track after everything else was done. I wanted to be happy with it before I got too far
Yeah, right.
to where I hit that point where I'm like, well, this track pen is just horrible. And then you're ripping everything back up again. Being young and broke, I didn't exactly have all the money to go
Thrifty.
throwing into building a whole new layout for the fourth time around. So
Yeah, right.
not poking at any hosts at all, but
Yeah, whatever, man.
but this
So,
was just, it was an easy way to lay out the track, see how everything fit, put the cars into places, check the spacings. It just made a lot of sense.
so did you find anything that you, by doing it that way, did you find anything that you said, I really, 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 really want this, but it just isn't going to work? Like, is there something that you wanted to have on the layout that you didn't because of the fact that you couldn't make it work through the mock-up process?
Definitely on this fourth leg where there's a Y switch down there where the main was going to kind of like slink over and hit, and then the curve into this building was really sharp, and then none of this stuff here fit. And this is back when I had the grains or that elevator still here, and this whole module just felt really tight for no reason. Like the space between these two buildings was not big enough to get a road, so it didn't feel right front to back like that. Because that's the thing I tried to do when I drew when I was drawing all this stuff was I tried to draw the lot and everything around it. So like I wanted the fence, the road, everything was kind of drawn onto the software because I wanted it to feel like the real world. I want it to look right. So when I've got a road here that's all of 12 foot wide, it just there was a lot of stuff that come back. And then this one here, I know it's kind of hard to see, but there's a switch that drops down and it hits a warehouse. This was the road crossing, and then there was another little stub here, which on the track plan is now the maintenance away kickoff. But you can
okay.
it was originally a drop. There was a warehouse that was going to be here, and then it would dump into this empty lot for one more spot. And I hand operated it, and I looked at it, and I looked at the way it butted up to this road, and the way it killed photography options looking to the right. I didn't like it. It was too tight. It didn't work. This industry was on a curve, so trying to couple up to cars and in scale on a curve, just it never would have worked. So that got scrapped. This building with the entrance on the right side got scrapped. This track got shifted over and actually ended up working really well. This building being so far forward for the drop off on those hoppers didn't work. That got scrapped. And then on the back where that caboose is was supposed to be like a rail car restoration facility, so I would have an excuse to run, old baggage cars and whatnot. Like they're going to get restored. I just didn't like the way it used the space. It butted up to the road weird. It really killed that corner in terms of the look.
Yeah.
That got scrapped. Where this box car is now is actually the AMR scrap loadout track. It used to come left to right or right to left, and now it goes left to right this way. The building I was going to put here killed any chance of shots into this corner.
So you did a lot of addition by subtraction then through
Yeah.
the mock-up process, right?
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
spent a lot of months in drawings, in tape mode, in running by hand mode to really weed out the problems before I laid anything. I mean, I hand laid the yard ladder. I hadn't even done that yet before any of this was sorted out. I wanted to make sure this was something I was going to be 100% happy with before I did anything. And
that's
looking
awesome.
back now, I would easily do it again, regardless of whether you're building a 1 foot by 8 or a 100 by 800. I would do it all the same. It just works way better that way. And I'm trying to think. That was really early on in the process. I'm trying to think of when that would have been. Oh yeah, because this here. So this was like right after I got bench work in. I have some of this
look at
Atlas
that.
True
Some
Track code 65. I snapped it together just to run. And like as I was looking at this stuff, even though this was just like jokingly mocked up, I hated this. I hated the lack of use in this corner. I mean, it was all stuff I was thinking of from the time I had bench work done. Which that was the night we got the bench work built and put in.
Wow.
Holy cow.
So yeah, it was a lot of months of playing with it and looking at the drawings and pulling up tape and whatnot, and trying to find where I was at now. Somewhere down there. Oh, there it is. Yeah, like I once I really, like I said, this was an earlier plan. Once I moved all this other track and whatnot, that's when I started building. That was the first building to get built, or sorry, it was a Monroe Models engine shed. And that was not until I was pretty near what I was happy with trackage wise.
Wow.
But yeah, it makes a big difference. And like I said, I've seen a lot of comments in there that are saying a lot of the same thing. Somebody mentioned Lance Menheim's talked about negative space and industrial space. It's a lot of thinking. It's a lot of considering. Tom Klomoski's interview he did with you guys a couple weeks back, he talks about that a lot too, and he does a really good job about talking about that in his about his layout, is going over the design elements, the looking through bits and pieces, and not forcing anything, making sure everything flows, making sure you have space for everything. It's another really good show for layout design and layout concepts.
Yeah, right. I mean, you're seeing tons of comments coming in, just striking that balance, right? And a couple of modelers keep coming up: Lance Menheim, Tom Klomoski, Boomer. All with the shelf layouts, all with this concept of almost mastering this balance between negative space and industry.
Yeah, it really is a fine line, and I think it makes everything feel a lot more natural when you have that balance too.
Do you find it a little bit hard to cope with the negative space aspect because you are modeling an end scale and things are so small? You just kind of have that urge to, well, I have the room to do this. I want, because the equipment is so small.
Yeah,
that you can pack a lot into a 1 foot wide space. Do you find yourself struggling sometimes with and having to pull yourself back and saying, no, that's that's great. Maybe if I had more room, but this, and where I'm at, that's not a good idea. Have you ever had to struggle with something like that just because you're modeling an end scale? I mean, and it's not a knock on end scale. It's just the reality of you can get a lot in a small space,
No, it's a valid question. I think in end scale, it's much easier to get into that headspace, but I think it's something we all struggle with. Is that it's kind of a Vegas feeling. It's a glamour light show type. I don't know how to accurately describe it, but I feel like we all look at a space and we think about how much junk we can absolutely cram into it. And we all say that. I talk about the Z scale guys thinking about how much stuff they can get in a much smaller space, let alone myself. And really, that's where I think the first couple sets of layout designs came from, was jamming as much as I could and then pulling myself back and saying, okay, what do we really need? What works in this space? And again, that's why I spend a lot of time in the Blue Painter's tape software side of this, mocking it all up, because there's a lot of this stuff. Like even here, you can see, so the car shop is in back there, and these are all taken on my phone. So bear with me on the poor quality compared to my earlier photos.
Yeah, it's a real abysmal photo.
Yeah, it's terrible, isn't it? But
right.
The car shop is in, which that track is still there now. But you can see up here where this grain car is, that is that track where the little warehouse and that lot was going to go. So at one point I did put it in. I tacked it down, and then ended up pulling it out. Thankfully I didn't glue it or do anything super permanent, because I ended up absolutely hating the way it looked. But no, I think it's something we all struggle. You see a space, you get really excited, you want to put as much as you can into it, and I guess the real challenge is not acting upon that childlike at Christmas, getting your first train set excitement and just
Right.
going for it.
Sure.
Right.
And by the way, this is also when we were talking about taking everything back out again. We were going to sell it all. Just any offers, just take it all, really. But
Oh, glad that didn't work out.
yeah, so trying to see, and you'll see a lot of other photos mixed in here from Model Railroad News samples and bits and pieces. This is
Sure.
just kind of my trains folder, but I mean, the highway bridge at one point was mocked up. That building ended up going away. The yard ladder at that time was built. Some of the other bits and pieces. This was the first wreck on the layout.
Ooh, that
I
looks
had
like a
nothing to
Jim
do with it.
Dandy.
Yeah, so I bumped the end of the layout, and the cars from that silo rolled out, and I felt like it was probably good to go ahead and document the first accident on the layout.
Is there a drug test that ensued
Oh,
there?
Absolutely, we stepped across the hall
Yeah.
and immediately went right into drug tests. So
Yeah, right into the
I'm not
drug
sure
test.
why I was falling over in this photo. We can address that later, though. I'm trying to see where about that would have changed.
So where are we at today? Like, so we've
So-
gone through the progression so far, and it, we're at a, from what we can see behind you there, it looks like you have a operating model railroad.
Yeah, so I'll take you to the shots I actually took just before the show today.
Okay.
Here they are.
Oh, look at that CN car. Well, we gotta talk about that in a
Well,
minute. But yeah,
you want to come back to that, or
yeah, we'll come back
Okay,
to that in a
okay.
minute.
so this is what is now. So this is module 1 over here, which is
Mhm.
mostly just yard. This is module 2 going to 3. You can see the car shop or the restoration facility got scrapped for a 2-spot warehouse. It just worked better. The box cars were a smaller fit. I was taking up less space in the yard. It just worked really well. AMR scrapyard still needs fencing and scrap piles done, but these scrap piles won't be all that tall. So shooting over AMR to this area will be much easier. I'm actually still working on the steps for the building here. It just got done with the interior for that
What?
building here.
Wow.
Yeah, including a properly detailed, if I go back
Whoa,
up,
whoa, 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 whoa.
85-inch TV with tin can sales are up this year, in case you were curious.
So this is
Come
an N scale.
on.
This is an N scale,
That's it.
and
I
we're looking,
quit.
and we're doing tin cans. Tin can. We got a tin can price dashboard. Wow.
And
Showing
this is
the sales at the metal plant.
Yeah, so this is not because I had to, but when I shoot photos of this area, when you look from here it is. When you get down at the AMR level, you can see almost directly into that building.
Unbelievable.
So that's not the only building in the layout that has an interior. Just briefly, not that we ever go sideways on this show and
No,
go
this
on
one's
tangents of other stuff.
this is totally within the guardrails here.
Oh, so this is a building flat up against the backside of the UPS warehouse. There's a pair of bathrooms in these windows.
Yeah.
So on the layout is the backside of these on module 3 in that back corner.
This is cool.
And then on the actual UPS building in the corner, there's a pair of windows I needed a set of stairs for, and that's not completely to scale, pretty close, but completely scratch built out of scrap.
Wow.
And that one is the actual UPS building, this little jet out right here. There's a pair of big windows right on the front that needed something in there.
In N scale.
Oh, and the front of this building actually has a sales or a office type space up on the front of it, but I don't think I have a picture of that one either. So it's just little stuff like that. You wouldn't notice it. And I don't like photos and windows. I never have. I never will. You cannot convince me. Don't try. I would rather build scrap.
Here on the
rooms
second
like that.
section, we have our own opinions.
Yeah, and you won't change
we
mine.
will-
I guarantee it.
and don't try changing ours. Yeah,
No.
right.
I don't like it in photos because when you change the angle you look at it, it doesn't change. It looks like you're still looking at it directly 90. So I'd rather take the time to, the extra hour or two to build a small room that moves with the shot versus the pictures. I think it looks way better when you do. Oh, there's got a little bit in this grainy. Yeah, you can see those stairs installed there.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Because when you look at the stairs from here, you're going to see the backside. But if you go to the other side of the layout, you're going to see the front. It
Right.
just makes a difference to me. So anyways, getting back to where we were originally. So that is module 2. Module 1's pretty well just a yard, and I think there's a photo a little further on back the other way. These 2 buildings still need interiors here and a little bit of detail here. Like I said, AMR needs scrap, but for the most part is done, besides some light weathering to the ground. So this is module 3. This is that single point switch, the maintenance away lead, the UPS force at the back. Yep. Snoot knows that I had a buddy of mine over in St. Louis, Justin Sobek, painted that for me.
That's
And
cool.
that was an SD40 that actually worked in Fairfax there over the summer of 2021. So that is a prototype unit that still would have been around in 15 for me.
Nice.
It's still missing the beacons, but I just haven't got around to installing it. But road crossings, I'm waiting to see if I'm going to do lights or if I'm just going to do crossbucks here. I haven't decided. A lot of the stuff around the building's done scenery wise. I need to do parking stripes and a center island here.
Jeez.
And then I've got Osborne model guardrails to go around the inside of this so nobody backs out onto the tracks.
Oh, jeez.
This lot here, I haven't decided what I'm doing here because it's just an empty spot that I didn't want to fill for the sake of getting nice shots down that. I've got a fireworks stand and a small hot dog stand that are available for this spot. I think interchange by season, but
It'd be kind of a cool thing to pop in, pop out.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. So.
What about a food truck?
And see, they have, I think it's Fowler makes like in-scale trailer hot dog stands and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I've thought about putting those because I built a building that came with little wooden benches. So I have a package of laser cut wood picnic tables. So that's been a thought as well.
Wow.
Coming around to a really shaky photo of the 4th module, which developed into kind of a team track, open lot for if I wanted to use center beams or flat cars, coil cars, just kind of whatever I could jam out here. And then this dock here has got a lot of barrels and other junk on it. It's a tight 2 spot, at best 1 spot, depending on the car length, and then 2 spots back here on the closed doors. And then this building here takes 1 car here, 1 on the backside, and then it goes into the building behind here for 1 hopper, 1 box car. So the what I can put in there is pretty flexible. And I wanted that way I could kind of change up the cars that are on the layout. If I ever get bored of something, I can always go back and change it up.
Yeah, right.
Santa, the back. Oh, the loadout dock there.
Yeah.
Best way to model a concrete loading dock. You're never going to believe this. Concrete. Get some of the modeling concrete from Michael's. Pour a form, or build a form. Pour your concrete. There's no better way to model concrete than concrete. Now, for the roads, I don't think I'd recommend so much. I did plaster for most everything else, but yeah, that dock came out good. I got a little bit of wave that I ended up sanding down a bit, but it worked. So,
and then this is the other end.
Yeah, so this is module 1, the yard. The head track for pulling cars out. I can pull a full string of cars out and still clear the end switch. Most of them will hold 4 cars or so. And then it's a real tight to get in here, but you can get all the way back down to the engine facility. So when we get engines for the magazine, I'd like to detail the inside of this with toolboxes and such like that and be able to do 1 cover in here.
Sure.
But another big portion I approached this with was when I was looking at the operations is what I was putting on the front of the layout that would stop me from being able to operate. So like there'll be some bushes, but no trees along this first run because I want to be able to get to the switches. I want to be able to get to the cars, be able to uncouple them. That's why also the spots around 2 on 3 where AMR is on the front, the only thing that's there is a small chain link fence.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to have to reach over a building or reach around a building. All the cars are easily visible from the operator's standpoint. So that was another thing I really considered when I was drawing up my layout too, was ease of operations and not having a lot in your way. Sells a concrete kit. Not a concrete. I not to say a kit. It's just hobby concrete. It comes in a box. It's, I don't know, 8x8 or 10x10x10 or so. It's not all that big, but it's just a bag of concrete. And you mix it up to about a smoothie milkshake consistency and pour it and give it about a day to dry and done and done.
Wow, that's awesome.
So you could get a few if you're looking for buildings or stuff to put in here, Shane. Tom Gazier has a podcast that the Crossing Gate podcast. They have all sorts of suggestions. I think Gruesome Casket would be a great addition to the layout here. A carousel or like a gazebo. I
Mhm.
think those would all be fine additions. So if you need additional ideas, Split Rock and his podcast, they have ads that can get you set up for filling in some of that space.
Yeah, I'll have to look at it. Like I said, I really, after boiling it down, this is part of the reason I didn't put that one in here. Was this shot? This is right where the hot dog stand would be.
Hmm.
No, yeah.
It just kind of, it wouldn't be bad if you were trying to hide this corner or this empty space between the two buildings here where the road is. But from this angle, it eats a lot of this corner up for me. And that's why I took originally the big warehouse or the little warehouse that was right here where this track was. That's why this one got taken out as well. It really narrows up this whole shot.
Wow.
But for the most part, that's about it. I mean, it's a
it's
pretty
really coming
straightforward
along.
switching layout. It takes about an hour and a half ish to switch. I haven't been able to fully time it with a proto throttle. I want to say it's probably closer to 2 with the proto throttle and all.
Really?
Depending on how much momentum I put into it, it's at least an hour and a half. I know that because I've run it with a regular throttle and it's about an hour and a half because you have to do all your basing point, go back to the yard, and then do all your trailing point at once. You can't really do a mix because you've got the one awkward runaround that goes from module 2 to 3, so you really have to kind of do one at a time.
Yeah.
But
So a question. Does that relatable 100 asks? Does that mean you're using Arizona Rock and Mineral for ballast or making your own?
Arizona Rock and Mineral.
Yeah.
The dirt I make on my own, my actual dirt base, is real dirt sifted down to about a dust consistency. But I really like that Arizona Rock and Mineral. The only Woodland Scenics I used was on the the team track on 4. This lot here. And looking back now, it's still really big for in scale.
Yeah, right.
But the ballast, I really like that Arizona Rock and Mineral. I've used it for almost all of my photo models for the covers. I swear by that stuff for both in scale and HO. It looks fantastic for size.
Yeah, right. I use it in HO scale, and it's really good. Yeah, excellent. This is really coming along, Shane.
It's getting there. I mean, for on and off work after 3 years, and like I said, there was a good bit of time there where I did not. I didn't do anything on the layout. I come home and I felt really unmotivated, and like I said, I didn't want to force it because I didn't want to do subpar work. I was going to be unhappy and have to go back and fix later. So
Yeah, right.
I just let it come back to me, and even just recently, I've kind of hit another stride in it because even just the last 2 months, it's made considerable progress from where it was. I mean, 6 months ago, even a year ago. 6 months ago, I didn't even have static grass down, so all of the grass on the layout is 6 months new.
Oh, wow. So it's fairly fresh work then.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff is, for the most part, it sat in dirt mode. I'm trying to find, yeah. So this is when I was taking it all apart to do the static grass. I'm trying to find where it was just dirt. Oh, well, it used to just be dirt everywhere. So yeah, a lot of the stuff is just getting into that second wind. Oh, here's that's one of the photo modules for anybody that saw the Bachmann Charger unit that just came out.
Oh yeah.
A couple months ago. That's the cover for that one.
Cool.
Made to where I can slide it so it looks like it's moving. But yeah, for the longest time, I did dirt. I did the ballast. I was super motivated, and then I just hit a wall and didn't do anything for a while. I did some small weathering stuff until about 3 or 4 months ago when I hit grass hard and really got after it again.
Nice. That looks good. So, um, let's
Now that
see
I've
here.
essentially run off of the podcast for a while now, I'm tempted to go back through some of the comments there.
Yeah, so I've been bringing them up and prompting you with questions here and there. So, the one thing, let's see here. Um, I want to give the section crew in the chat here the ability to kind of come back. So if you have any questions for Shane on his layout or anything that we've talked about here, make sure you bring them up here, and we'll get them posted so he can answer them to the best of his knowledge or ability. But I just want to segue back to I think it was Joe DeLusso that asked for a camera,
Yes.
starter camera. What's the best starter camera? I mean, we all love the cool pics. You know,
I mean, I really like sketching in watercolor, but I guess we're gonna have to pick a camera.
Yeah. So if you were to if you were to use a camera, what would be a good starter camera? You know, to essentially get us from that, step above the phone. We really wanted to get some good detail in our model shots, and then also have it possibly, just a good general phone or a camera for doing rail fanning and that type of stuff too.
If you're just doing photo, this is almost kind of a loaded question because it really feels like a DCC question because there's so many.
Yeah, right.
It's really personal preference.
It's a Chevy versus Ford thing too.
It is.
Yeah, it really is. I've been Nikon forever. I love my Nikons. The starter kit that I had a D3200, and I got both of my 18 to 55 and my 55 to 200 lens with it. I ran on that kit for a long time, and it did enough. It did good enough work for me to get by. Working with the magazine, I needed to step up, which is where I went to the 7500. But my wife does portrait photography of people, which is one thing I absolutely cannot do. I can shoot things, but not people. She can shoot people, but not things. So we're very opposite of each other. But from when she was in high school, she was on the yearbook group, and they had Canons, and she swears by them. She will not use a Nikon. She will absolutely not touch mine. I've used her Canon before. It's a great piece of equipment.
Here we go.
Yeah. So I mean, it's personal preference. It's a lot of the same stuff. It's just learning where the buttons are and whatnot. It's very personal. I'm a big Nikon guy. I really like my Nikon stuff. I've had it for years and I love it. My wife loves her Canon stuff. Neither of us would trade to go to the other side. But the D3200, if you're going the Nikon route, the D3200 with the 18 to 55 millimeter and the 55 to 200 millimeter is about a solid pick. And I know they make a lens that's like, I want to say it's a 38 to 180, which is an in between of both of them. And I think that's what Tony uses on his Nikon.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't remember what he runs with. I know he's got a 3200 and he's got something else. I don't recall, but I know he's got that 18 or that 38 to 180 lens. And it's nice because where I have to swap out when I hit 55 millimeter in depth, he can go all the way out to 180. So there's some stuff I didn't ever spend the money on the extra lens because I felt I had, I could do everything I needed to with the two. Really, I'm just buying convenience there. So a lot of it is personal preference. Like I said, it's much like the DCC question, but the 3200 or something similar. I don't know if they make that 3200 anymore, but something similar to that is a great stepping stone getting into camera photography.
Right. I mean, and you guys are talking, basically with Nikon or Canon, Ford versus Chevy.
Mm-hmm.
And then Andy comes to the conversation. I use Fujifilm, so I'm a Datsun guy, right? Or,
Right.
this is a knockoff, whatever, AM General or AMC, brand. But, I think it goes back to Boomer's point, learning how to use it to, do some research on lighting. What are some of the key concepts like white balance and shutter speed? What are all of those things? Just get the general ideas of that. So when you go to select the different types of functions on your phone or on your camera, excuse me, you know, you're setting it up to take the best picture possible. So,
And the
but
nice
yeah,
thing about, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, and I was just going to say, and then Thomas Imlay basically says, what lens would you recommend on top of it?
Um, a- Again, for starting out, something in that range of 18 to 55 or 55 200, or if you can find something middle of the road, like Tony's got that 38 to, I think it's 150 or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be anything amazing. Unless you're going out to shoot any sporting events professionally, you don't need to go out and spend $10,000 on just a lens.
Right.
A lot of starter kits will get you that 18 to 55, 55 to 200 lens. And like I said, I still run the exact same two lenses I have for my starter set. And I mean, you saw the photos I gave to Mike there of that Johnson County group. I've had those lenses forever, and as long as you take care of that glass and learn to really dial the settings in on that camera, um, I mean, the more you spend on it, the nicer a lens, but it's not anything critical.
Yeah.
But definitely, you're going to want that 50. I like my 18 to 55 because I can usually shoot most things within 50 yards and not have to crop. It's nice for up close detail shots. It pulls a lot. Not very often am I shooting things far away, except for like that one shot of the yard where you're looking north south from the Johnson County stuff. I put the long lens on because you just get a better shot downways.
Sure.
But most everything I shoot, I'm pretty damn close to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And basically, Andy Crawford, you know, it's the same song and dance. It's just like DCC, you know, ergonomics, configuration, what you prefer. But don't tell my wife it doesn't matter. So, good one there. Yeah. So, Mike,
Yeah.
I know you're still here with us.
I'm here.
I just wanted to.
Shane, you're still sharing, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know if anybody else wanted to see anybody else.
It's all good.
See
So
Mike's
did you have
ugly
any?
mug for a bit.
Yeah. Did you have any questions for Shane? We covered a lot of ground this evening, and you know we're getting pretty close to that 3-hour mark. So I wanted to give everyone in the chat opportunity to ask questions, make comments, but more importantly, Mike, what do you got for Shane as we start to come to the end of the line here?
I got nothing.
You got nothing?
I got nothing. I got nothing that we can talk about on air. How's that? I got all sorts of stuff for him off air, but no, it Shane, honestly, it's you know, having known you for what is it now? 5 years?
Oh,
Right
if not
around
more
there?
than that.
If not more than that.
7 years. now?
7 years maybe. Something along those lines. It really seems like to me that everything kind of starting to commingle for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of everything is kind of coming together, and it's really kind of neat to see that because it's like watching how you transition that layout from the first iteration to the one that you have. Just that alone, you know, that is. And then listening to you, I hated it. Well, there's a classic Shane comment right there. You know, that's all there is to it. But I mean, no, I mean, honestly, there's so much that you could take away from it. And N scale is one of those things. It's kind of like S. You know, it's kind of like it has obviously a lot more available for it, but it's not exactly known as the mainstream scale, right? HO is always is king, and then everything else is a lesser scale of sorts, and not necessarily lesser, but I mean just
it's just not as prevalent.
secondary scales. Yeah, it's not as prevalent, but you're taking N scale to try to make that as prototypical as possible in a freelance kind of way. You know, and it's really kind of neat. It's really kind of cool. I liked it a lot. I like your layout. It's come a long way. So,
thanks, Mike. You know, I think there's a lot you can do, and both of you guys know freelance just as much as anybody else here up on this panel. But I think it was Tom Komosky said in his interview too. The best way to make it feel real is just introducing those prototype concepts, those practices, those bits and pieces. You can make it whatever railroad you want. I mean, both of you guys know that just because you've both invented your own rail lines. But the more of that prototype you infuse into it, it makes it feel real. It makes it feel natural. And Mike, as a guy who works for the railroad, I mean, it should be no question for you is how to introduce practices you already do and making it feel just like the real thing.
And I just actually went through a little bit of that between boomers, between listening to Boomer and Ralph and talking with Andy about certain things and everything else like that. I had my Shane moment, and I walked down to my layout and I looked at it and I'm like, I hate that.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, now what do I want to do with this? And I'm sitting here going, this is way too. I'm trying to put too much in a small spot. It just doesn't look good. Just doesn't flow. It doesn't work. And then I came up with the concept that I have right now, and it's with my warehouse. And it is. I take a look at things at work, and I can see things, and I'm like, I gotta remember this. I gotta. Believe it or not, I was actually looking in the ditch at work yesterday because there's all sorts of busted up old ties in there. And I'm like, ooh, that's going to be kind of neat. I wonder how I'm going to be able to do that. That's going to be kind of a neat detail that most people don't see, and it's just kind of, I have an unfair advantage, so to speak. Any of us railroaders actually do that are modelers and rail fans, is the fact that we have the inside looking out
Right.
ability. We have the ability to look from the inside out, whereas the majority of the hobby looks from the outside looking in and wondering what's going on. We actually know what's going on and what the reasonings for things are, and a lot of times, sometimes the reasonings for things are really just as simple as they look, and sometimes it's just kind of crazy, so it's at being able to introduce those things, and with you being able to work for the magazines and getting the opportunities that you've had, you can see in your modeling that you're absolutely starting to apply some of those things, and I think that's huge for anybody. Boomer has talked about it. Ralph Renzetti talked about it. Thomas Klamoski's talked about it. Tom Jacobs talked about doing it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all it all starts to come down. Mike Rose, Mike Rose.
Hell of
that
an
was
episode.
that was an episode and a half. I mean, it was just it's just, you're doing it right, bud.
Yeah,
that's it. That's all I've got to say.
So Shane, you're out there on the interwebs, right? So we talked about the Breakman 17 at YouTube. You do have a Facebook page out there where you're posting your modeling activities as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. So if you go onto Facebook, Breakman 17 Custom Models.
Yeah.
It used to be my install page, and then since I've done less installs, it's really kind of become more of my generic whatever I'm working on page. So there's a lot more bit and piece of layout update, and I'd like to get back to doing video. Right now it's tough because like with this past year we had the wedding and all kinds of other trips and flying in on helicopters. And
I was gonna say, can we address this just for 5 seconds?
We can.
Andy,
what?
This guy made every guy who's ever gotten married look bad. He flew into his wedding on a helicopter, for good God's sakes. Who does that? And just kind of walked in with a vest on and cowboy boots and a hold on, just like he owned the place. Like there was just nothing else going on. And I'm sitting here going, why did he have to do that to all of us? Because now the bar's been raised. None of us is going to be able to get there.
I'm never going to get married again. I mean, I'm good.
Me either. But I mean, it's just there's always anniversaries and all that's going to have to be done. And
yeah, right. Well, don't make it too public so my wife doesn't catch on. So
No.
But anyways, yeah, so you're out on Facebook as well, and we're just getting a couple comments here from the section crew. So you can find Shane out there as well on Facebook, YouTube, and you also contribute in a couple other groups fairly often, don't you? The N
Yeah.
Scales Shenanigans.
Yeah,
Yeah.
between working with Clem and them, and then I put quite a bit. Most of the stuff I put up, I'm also putting up here on the Second Section podcast and a couple other
Yep.
spots. So,
Right.
as I've gotten back to working on the layout a little more regularly, I've started posting a little bit more regularly, and going forward into quote modeling season. As long as I don't get swamped with the magazine over the next couple months, I'm hoping to get a little bit more content, especially now that the
Yeah.
layout's closer to done and running. I'd like to get
Yeah.
some videos showing some of the equipment moving across the road.
Yeah, and your YouTube channel, even your old content is it's really entertaining. So just the different operating sessions, the different types of installs that you've done, and the different lighting effects and sound effects that you've done in different locomotives, awesome. So I just want to again thank you for sharing that with all of us. I'm going to do a little bit of shameless plugging here before we tie down for tonight. So for those listening out there in the after or in the audio version of this, you can check us out at second section podcast.com. We have our full library out there of both video and audio recordings out there. And then, feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel here. I noticed a bunch of people felt that they got a lot of value out of tonight's podcast here. So make sure you're passing the word around to your modeling friends. If you think they'd get something out of this too, make sure that they go ahead and and subscribe to the channel here so that they don't miss any of the upcoming shows and the other stuff that we're putting out on the community. So if you're a Facebook user, we're out there too. Second Section Podcast Facebook group. Come join the party. A lot of good content out there. We share every other show. What's on your workbench? We bring up the Facebook post from the community live up on there, and we give some critiquing. And then we are starting to get into the swag business as well. There's a poll out there if you want to see t-shirts. We have stickers, so you can email us at second section podcast at gmail.com. And I'll bring that up here on the bottom, and you can email us at the show, and we'll mail out some stickers. Shane, I will get you stickers and swag as well for the $99.95 that you paid us to be on the show.
A sticker.
A single
A single sticker.
I just want a corner
So,
of a sticker, but
yeah. But at any rate, so it looks like some folks in the chat are starting to head over to other chats and stuff like that. That's great. Shane, I'm going to give you the opportunity to close her down here with any final thoughts, and then we'll tie down for tonight.
Yeah, hey, like I said, I appreciate you guys letting me come on and talking to you guys. Yeah, I've been friends with both of you guys for a long time, and I know it's very easy to get on here. And Mike and Andy, you both know that we've spent a lot of nights on here just talking
BS
and gums about everything. So
right.
it's so easy to get on here and talk with you guys, and in this format's great. I really like what you guys do with the show, the interactive format with the comment section. A lot of these guys are great. Marty, don't let your wife tell you the Kansas City trip was bad. It was a great time seeing you guys, and you guys were awesome guests. But no, I really enjoyed being on. I think the topics you guys cover are fantastic, and I'm really happy that you finally got to the bottom of the barrel and had to pick me.
Oh, we ain't to the bottom yet.
We're not there. We're not there.
We're working on it.
Yeah, we'll be bringing it'll just be the Andy show for that. But seriously, Shane, thank you for coming on. And I mean, there's quite a few folks in the chat tonight that are now inspired to go out and get to work on their layouts too because of this show. And you're a big part of that, and showing and sharing what you've done tonight. It's remarkable. So thank you for that. I do want to give a shout out to the section crew. They've been here for 3 hours now. We carried about 65 to anywhere between 65 to 80 members in the chat all night. I want to thank every one of you for sticking around, comments, questions, the interaction between the other members of the section crew. It's all great. And really, it's fun to watch the banter go on there. And it's fun to have you guys along for the ride. So again, any
I
comments,
have one more.
questions,
Sorry.
concerns, check us out, second section podcast at gmail.com. We're there. Ask us for some stickers. Mike, what do you got for us before we tie down?
Not to put a downer on everything, but it seems like this is happening a lot lately, and I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention it. We lost Craig Biscayr earlier in the year, and now just yesterday or the day before, we lost Alan McClellan
and Dick Elwell too,
and
right?
Dick Elwell as
Right.
well. But Alan McClellan was, I believe, the most recent. Everybody in model railroading knows who this guy is. I mean, Virginia and Ohio that was the first freelance railroad I ever heard of. And it kind of stirred my pot for the freelance modeling bug, so to speak. So thoughts and prayers go out to the McClellan family. He's going to be sorely missed in the hobby. And, we're getting to be that age, so it's unfortunate, but it's a factor. It's a reality of life. And, thank you, Alan, for everything you did for the hobby.
Yeah. Very good. So section crew, again, thanks for everything. And like I said, we'll talk to you guys in 2 weeks about Train Fest in Milwaukee. If you guys are going to be in Train Fest on Saturday, be sure to look us up. And if you want to meet up with Mike or I, just let us know on the Facebook group. We'll be out there and shaking hands and kissing babies, or kissing hands and shaking babies and giving out stickers and all that good stuff. So if you want to grab a beer, get lunch with us or whatever, that's cool too. So anyways, thanks again. And we'll talk to you all in a couple of weeks. Have a good night.